There's something deeply mesmerizing about imagining the ocean that once covered your hometown, isn't there? Picture this. Where you're sitting right now, listening to these sleep stories, might have once been the hunting ground of a 60-foot megalodon, or the coral kingdom of ancient reefs that rivaled anything we see today in the Caribbean. Tonight, we're embarking on a journey not just through the deep-sea mysteries of our modern oceans, but traveling back through time itself to when these prehistoric ocean facts tell stories so incredible, they challenge everything we think we know about life on Earth. We'll explore ancient waters where 40-foot sea monsters ruled with bone-crushing jaws, where pasta-like creatures drifted through primordial seas, and where the very ground beneath major American cities like Los Angeles was once a thriving underwater metropolis, teeming with marine giants. These aren't just random ocean mysteries from distant lands. These are stories rooted in American soil, in fossils found from the beaches of California to the limestone quarries of Missouri, from the ancient seabeds of Wyoming to the deep waters off our own coasts. Every one of these prehistoric ocean facts connects directly to the landscape, transforming familiar places into windows to alien worlds that existed millions of years before humans ever walked the earth. What makes these sleep stories particularly captivating is how they blend the wonder of deep-sea exploration with the mind-bending reality of time travel. When we look at fossils of ancient marine life found right here in America, we're essentially holding pieces of alien worlds that once flourished where we now live and work. The ocean mysteries we'll uncover tonight span from the dawn of life itself, 3.5 billion years ago, to the age of monsters that would make Jaws look like a goldfish. Before we dive into these incredible prehistoric ocean facts, take a moment to get comfortable. Maybe dim those lights, grab your favorite blanket, and let your imagination prepare for a journey through time and tide. And here's something I'm genuinely curious about. As we explore these ancient oceans together, I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment and tell me what state you're in, because I guarantee that no matter where you are in America, we'll discover incredible ocean mysteries that once existed right beneath your feet. From sea monsters in prehistoric Texas to coral reefs in ancient Nevada, your hometown has secrets that will amaze you. Now, let's begin our journey through time, starting with a revelation that will forever change how you see one of America's most famous cities. Close your eyes if you'd like, and imagine traveling back 90 million years to when Hollywood was underwater and the stars weren't on sidewalks, but swimming 60 feet above what would one day become the Walk of Fame. Our first story takes us to a place where dreams are made, but long before any camera rolled, this location was home to the ultimate blockbuster cast. Real-life sea monsters that dominated ancient American waters. Story 1. When Hollywood was a hunting ground. There are moments in geological history so surreal, so utterly divorced from our modern reality, that they feel like scenes from the most ambitious science fiction film ever conceived. But unlike the fantasy worlds created in Hollywood studios, the story we're about to explore actually happened, right beneath the very ground where those studios now stand. 90 million years ago, during the middle of the Cretaceous period, the entire area we now know as Los Angeles existed in a completely different world. There were no palm trees swaying in the California breeze, no Hollywood sign gleaming on distant hills, no beaches where surfers caught waves. Instead, where the City of Angels now sprawls, there stretched a vast, warm, shallow sea teeming with creatures so massive and terrifying that they would make every monster movie ever filmed pale in comparison. Picture the scene as it would have appeared to a time traveler visiting this prehistoric ocean paradise. The water was crystal clear and remarkably warm, heated by a climate that was dramatically different from today's. Palm-like trees and giant ferns lined distant shores, while the sea itself pulsed with life forms that had evolved along paths so alien to our modern experience that encountering them would feel like visiting another planet entirely. In these ancient waters, where Beverly Hills boutiques now display their wares, massive megalodons prowled the depths like living submarines. These weren't the 18-foot great whites that we consider apex predators today. These were monsters that stretched 60 feet from nose to tail, their jaws capable of crushing a small car, their teeth the size of a human hand. Each tooth was a work of biological engineering, serrated like a steak knife but harder than steel, designed for one purpose: turning other large marine animals into manageable chunks. The fossilized remains of these incredible predators lie scattered throughout Southern California's geological layers, preserved in the shale and limestone that formed from the sediments of that ancient sea. When construction crews dig foundations for new buildings in downtown Los Angeles, they occasionally unearth these massive teeth, black as obsidian and still sharp enough to cut skin after 90 million years. Each tooth tells the story of a predator so successful, so perfectly adapted to its environment, that megalodons would continue to rule the oceans for tens of millions of years after this particular sea disappeared. But the megalodons weren't the only monsters calling these prehistoric waters home. Swimming alongside them were creatures that seemed designed by a nightmare committee of evolution's most creative minds. Mosasaurs, snake-like marine reptiles with razor-sharp teeth and flippers instead of legs, undulated through the water like massive underwater serpents. These weren't small creatures hiding in the depths. The largest mosasaurs found in California's fossil record stretched over 50 feet in length, with skulls alone measuring more than 6 feet from snout to neck. The hunting strategy employed by these ancient predators was both elegant and terrifying. Mosasaurs possessed flexible skulls that could expand like a snake's, allowing them to swallow prey much larger than their normal head size would suggest. Their teeth, curved backward like fishhooks, ensured that anything caught in their jaws had no hope of escape. Fossilized stomach contents found in California reveal the remains of large fish, other marine reptiles, and even smaller mosasaurs, painting a picture of an ocean where cannibalism was just another survival strategy. The water column above these apex predators teemed with life forms that provided an endless buffet for the hungry giants below. Schools of ancient fish, some armored like medieval knights, others sleek and fast like modern tuna, filled the middle depths of this prehistoric sea. Ammonites, those iconic spiral-shelled creatures that would one day become some of our most beautiful fossils, jetted through the water like living nautiluses, their tentacles trailing behind them as they hunted smaller prey or fled from larger predators. The seafloor itself was a landscape that would have been familiar to any modern diver visiting a tropical reef, yet utterly alien in its specific details. Massive oysters, some growing to the size of dinner plates, filtered nutrients from the warm water while providing homes for countless smaller creatures. Strange corals, unlike any species alive today, created underwater forests where fish could hide and where predators could ambush unwary prey. What makes this prehistoric scene even more remarkable is how perfectly preserved evidence of it remains in the rock layers beneath modern Los Angeles. The La Brea tar pits, famous for their saber-toothed cats and dire wolves, represent just the most recent chapter in a much longer story of preservation. Deeper layers formed millions of years earlier contain the fossilized remains of the sea monsters that once ruled these waters. The process of fossilization in this ancient marine environment was particularly effective because of the unique chemistry of the seawater and the rapid burial that occurred when storms stirred up sediments. Creatures that died in these waters were quickly covered by fine particles of mud and sand, protecting their remains from scavengers and creating the perfect conditions for the formation of detailed fossils. Some of the most remarkable discoveries have come from construction sites throughout the Los Angeles basin, where workers have uncovered complete mosasaur skulls, massive shark vertebrae, and even preserved soft tissue from creatures that lived when the continents were arranged differently and the climate was warm enough to support palm trees at the poles. The transition from this aquatic wonderland to the terrestrial landscape we know today happened gradually over millions of years, as tectonic forces slowly lifted the seafloor above the waterline and changed the region's climate from tropical to Mediterranean. But the evidence of its marine past remains written in stone throughout Southern California, a constant reminder that the ground beneath our feet has stories to tell that stretch back far beyond human history. Today, when Angelenos drive down Wilshire Boulevard or stroll through Griffith Park, they're traveling over what was once the bottom of a sea so rich with life that it supported ecosystems rivaling anything in our modern oceans. The limestone used in many of the city's older buildings was formed from the compressed shells and skeletons of countless marine creatures, making every structure a monument to the prehistoric ocean that once covered this land. The megalodons and mosasaurs that once ruled these waters left behind more than just fossils. They left behind a legacy that challenges our understanding of how dynamic and changeable our planet truly is. In geological terms, 90 million years is just a moment. Yet in that brief span, the Earth transformed a thriving marine ecosystem into one of the world's largest metropolitan areas. As we drift away from the sunken streets of prehistoric Los Angeles, where 60-foot sharks once patrolled waters that would one day become the entertainment capital of the world, Our journey through these ancient oceans takes us even deeper into the past, to an era when the very definition of sea monster was being written by creatures so massive and powerful that they make the megalodon look almost modest by comparison. Our next story transports us from the warm, shallow seas of ancient California to the deeper, darker waters where evolution was experimenting with designs so extreme, so perfectly engineered for destruction, that they dominated the ocean food chain for millions of years. We're about to meet a predator so large and so fearsome that its very existence challenges our understanding of what life in ancient seas was truly like. Story 2. The 40-foot terror of ancient seas. In the remote badlands of Wyoming and Montana, where wind-carved stone formations stretch endlessly toward vast skies, paleontologists have uncovered evidence of a creature so monumentally terrifying that it redefines our understanding of what apex predation looked like in Earth's ancient oceans. This isn't just another large marine reptile from the age of dinosaurs. This is something that makes every sea monster movie seem tame by comparison. A real-life leviathan that ruled prehistoric waters with such dominance that its very existence challenges everything we thought we knew about the limits of biological engineering. 150 million years ago, during the height of the Mesozoic era, the interior of North America was covered by vast, shallow seas that connected the Arctic Ocean to the Gulf of Mexico. These weren't the deep, cold waters we might imagine when we think of ancient oceans. They were warm, nutrient-rich seas that supported marine ecosystems of staggering diversity and abundance. And at the very top of these aquatic food chains lived a creature that has come to be known simply as the 40-foot terror. The pliosaur that fossil hunters have painstakingly reconstructed from the ancient seabeds of the American West represents one of evolution's most successful experiments in creating the perfect marine predator. Unlike the elongated snake-like mosasaurs we encountered in our last story, this creature was built like a living battering ram, its massive body streamlined for explosive bursts of speed that could close the distance between predator and prey in seconds. The skull alone of this prehistoric monster measured over 8 feet in length, a bone fortress housing jaws that could generate bite forces rivaling those of the largest tyrannosaurs. But where land-based predators had to deal with the limitations of gravity and the need to support their weight on legs, this marine giant had the buoyancy of water to support its incredible mass, allowing it to grow to sizes that would have been impossible on land. The teeth of this ancient predator tell their own story of evolutionary perfection. Each one was the size and shape of a large banana, but these weren't the cutting implements of a great white shark or the grasping tools of a crocodile. These were bone crushers, designed to pierce the armored shells of giant ammonites and shatter the vertebrae of other marine reptiles with a single devastating bite. The fossilized teeth found in American rock formations still bear the microscopic scratches and wear patterns that reveal exactly how this predator used its incredible arsenal. What made this creature truly remarkable wasn't just its size or its weapons, but the sophisticated engineering of its body. 4 massive paddle-like limbs, each one as long as a modern killer whale, provided propulsion that could accelerate this 40-foot predator to speeds that would make it a blur in the water. The bone structure of these flippers shows adaptations that allowed for both powerful strokes during high-speed pursuits and delicate maneuvering when stalking prey in shallow waters. The discovery of complete skeletal remains in the Morrison Formation and other geological layers throughout the American West has provided an unprecedented window into how this predator lived and hunted. Stomach contents preserved in some specimens reveal a diet that included everything from large fish to other marine reptiles, suggesting that these creatures were opportunistic hunters, capable of taking down virtually any other animal in their aquatic domain. The hunting strategy employed by these prehistoric terrors appears to have been a combination of ambush predation and active pursuit that would have made them nearly inescapable once they decided to attack. Their large eyes, reconstructed from fossilized sockets, suggest excellent vision that could track prey movements in the murky waters of ancient seas. Their streamlined bodies and powerful tails indicate an ability to accelerate from a motionless hover to attack speed in a matter of seconds. Perhaps most chilling of all is the evidence suggesting that these creatures were intelligent hunters, capable of learning and adapting their strategies based on the behavior of their prey. Bite marks on fossilized bones show that they could calculate exactly where to strike to maximize damage, often targeting the necks and spines of other marine reptiles with surgical precision. The fossilization process that preserved these incredible predators in American rock formations has provided details that would be impossible to determine from incomplete remains. Soft tissue impressions show the outline of massive muscles that powered their deadly jaws, while preserved stomach contents reveal not just what they ate, but how quickly they could digest their prey and prepare for the next hunt. The ecosystem that supported these 40-foot terrors was unlike anything in our modern oceans. The shallow seas that covered much of North America during the Mesozoic were essentially vast nurseries, where marine life exploded into forms and sizes that seem almost impossible by today's standards. These waters supported not just the giant predators at the top of the food chain, but entire communities of prey animals that had evolved their own incredible adaptations for survival. Competition between these apex predators must have been fierce, as evidenced by fossilized bite marks that show these creatures sometimes turned on each other when other prey was scarce. The bone-deep gouges found on some specimens suggest battles between 40-foot monsters that would have turned the ancient seas red with blood and created underwater battlefields that dwarfed anything nature produces today. The end of this era came not through competition or predation, but through the slow geological processes that drained the interior seas and changed the climate that had supported these incredible ecosystems. As the waters receded and the continents took on their modern shapes, the giant marine predators that had ruled for millions of years found themselves without the vast aquatic territories they needed to survive. Today, the fossil remains of these incredible predators lie scattered across museum collections throughout America, their massive skulls and vertebrae serving as reminders of a time when the definition of sea monster was written by evolution itself. The perfectly preserved specimens found in Wyoming and Montana represent some of the most complete examples of these ancient giants ever discovered, providing insights into marine predation that continue to amaze researchers. The legacy of these 40-foot terrors extends beyond their impressive size and predatory capabilities. They represent a high water mark in the evolution of marine predators, a demonstration of just how large and powerful ocean-dwelling hunters could become when conditions were perfect for their success. No modern marine predator, not even the largest great whites or killer whales, comes close to matching the sheer power and dominance these ancient giants commanded in their aquatic realm. As we drift away from the bone-strewn battlefields where these prehistoric titans once ruled, our journey through ancient American waters takes us to an even more distant time, when the very foundations of marine ecosystems were being established by creatures whose beauty and abundance would set the stage for everything that followed. From the realm of ultimate predators, we now dive deeper into the past to discover the elegant, spiral-shelled creatures whose success and eventual extinction would reshape the entire ocean food chain and pave the way for the monsters we know today. Story 3. The Spiral Architects of Ancient Seas. There's something profoundly haunting about holding a fossil that represents the end of an era, especially when that era lasted longer than any other in Earth's history. In the limestone quarries of Texas and the ancient seabeds that stretch across America's heartland, paleontologists have uncovered countless examples of creatures whose very success would ultimately set the stage for the rise of the ocean's most famous predator. These are the ammonites, the spiral-shelled architects of prehistoric seas, whose 300 million year reign and dramatic extinction created the ecological vacuum that megalodons would eventually fill. To understand the true scale of ammonite dominance, imagine an ocean where these spiral-shelled creatures filled every niche that we associate with modern marine life. They weren't just present in ancient seas. They were the ancient seas, existing in such diversity and abundance that their fossils now serve as the primary markers paleontologists use to date rock layers around the world. From specimens no larger than a coin to giants with shells spanning 6 feet in diameter, ammonites evolved into every possible variation on their basic design, creating an underwater empire that would dwarf any ecosystem we see today. The genius of ammonite architecture lay in their chambered shells, spiraling outward in mathematical perfection that would make any architect envious. Each chamber represented a stage in the creature's growth, but more importantly, each served as a precisely calibrated buoyancy control system. By adjusting the gas and liquid content in these chambers, ammonites could hover at any depth, rise to the surface to hunt, or sink to the seafloor to hide from predators. It was a biological submarine technology that wouldn't be matched by human engineering until the 20th century. But these weren't passive drifters carried by ocean currents. Recent analysis of fossilized ammonite shells found in American rock formations has revealed sophisticated jet propulsion systems that allowed these creatures to move with surprising speed and agility. They could shoot backward to escape danger, hover motionless to ambush prey, or cruise through the water column with an efficiency that modern cephalopods still struggle to match. The hunting strategies employed by different ammonite species were as varied as their shell designs. Some developed long, straight shells that functioned like underwater spears, allowing them to dart after prey with arrow-like precision. Others evolved into living submarines with tightly coiled shells that provided maximum buoyancy control, letting them patrol the water column like silent sentinels waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The tentacles that emerged from these beautiful shells were equipped with hooks and suckers that could grasp prey with incredible strength. Fossilized stomach contents found in Texas limestone revealed that ammonites were opportunistic predators, capable of taking down fish, crustaceans, and even other ammonites when the opportunity arose. Some of the larger species appear to have been capable of crushing smaller shelled creatures between powerful beaks that functioned like underwater bolt cutters. The diversity of ammonite species during their heyday was staggering. Fossil beds in American formations contain examples of creatures that evolved along every possible evolutionary pathway. Some developed shells with intricate ribbing that may have provided camouflage or structural strength. Others grew smooth, streamlined shells that reduced drag during high-speed pursuits. Still others developed bizarre protrusions and spines that may have served as defensive weapons or display structures. The mathematical precision of ammonite shells has fascinated scientists and artists for centuries. The spiral patterns follow specific growth algorithms that create some of the most beautiful geometric forms in nature. Each species developed its own variation on these mathematical themes, resulting in shells that range from tight, flat spirals to loose, three-dimensional corkscrews. The consistency of these patterns within species suggests that ammonites had achieved a level of genetic precision in shell construction that approaches engineering perfection. What makes the ammonite story particularly relevant to our modern understanding of ocean ecosystems is how their success created the conditions for their own downfall. By the end of the Cretaceous period, ammonites had become so specialized for life in warm, shallow seas that they were unable to adapt when ocean chemistry began to change. The gradual acidification of seawater, possibly triggered by massive volcanic activity, began to dissolve their calcium carbonate shells faster than the creatures could repair them. The extinction event that ended the age of ammonites was gradual by geological standards, but catastrophic in its effects. As ocean acidity increased, the smaller, more delicate ammonite species disappeared first, followed by the medium-sized varieties, until only the largest, most robust species remained. But even these giants couldn't survive the chemical changes that were transforming their ocean home into something alien and hostile. The ecological niche left vacant by ammonite extinction was enormous. For 300 million years, these creatures had occupied virtually every level of the marine food web, from tiny planktonic forms that fed filter-feeding giants to massive predators that hunted other large marine animals. Their disappearance created opportunities that would take millions of years for other creatures to fully exploit. Enter the ancestors of megalodons. The early sharks that would eventually evolve into the ocean's most famous predators were relatively small, unremarkable creatures when ammonites ruled the seas. But as the spiral-shelled dominators disappeared, sharks began to evolve rapidly into the ecological roles that ammonites had vacated. The hunting strategies, size ranges, and even the mathematical precision of movement that had characterized successful ammonites would eventually be reflected in the predatory efficiency of megalodons. The irony of this transition is that megalodons became successful by essentially becoming the opposite of what ammonites had been. Where ammonites had been precise, calculated hunters that used technology and intelligence to dominate their environment, megalodons evolved into pure predatory machines that relied on size, speed, and overwhelming force. The elegant spiral shells that had defined marine architecture for hundreds of millions of years were replaced by cartilaginous efficiency and raw power. The fossil record found in American formations tells this story in remarkable detail. Layers of rock that once contained countless ammonite shells gradually give way to formations where shark teeth become increasingly common and increasingly large. The transition wasn't immediate, but it was inevitable. As ocean chemistry stabilized and new ecological opportunities opened up, the evolutionary pressure that would create megalodons began to build. Today, Ammonite fossils are among the most common and beautiful specimens found in American rock formations. Their mathematical perfection and artistic beauty have made them popular with collectors, while their abundance and precision make them invaluable to scientists studying ancient environments. But perhaps their greatest legacy is the reminder they provide that even the most successful life forms can be vulnerable to environmental changes, and that extinction can create opportunities for entirely new forms of life to emerge. The chambers of fossilized ammonite shells still follow the same mathematical principles that made them successful for 300 million years. Each spiral, each calculated curve, represents a solution to the challenge of life in ancient seas that was so effective it remained unchanged for longer than any other body plan in Earth's history. Yet their very perfection made them vulnerable when the rules of their ocean world began to change. As we drift away from the spiral galleries where ammonites once reigned supreme, leaving behind the mathematical beauty of their fossilized shells, our journey through prehistoric ocean mysteries takes us from the realm of architectural precision to the world of the utterly bizarre. From creatures that mastered the art of engineering, we now encounter something so strange, so completely alien in its form and function, that it challenges our very definition of what life can become in the deep sea. Story 4. The Spaghetti Monster of the Abyss. In the deepest reaches of the Pacific Ocean, where pressure would crush a human body in milliseconds, and eternal darkness has reigned since the formation of the Earth itself, there exists a creature so bizarre that its very appearance challenges our understanding of what life can become, when evolution follows paths completely divorced from the familiar world of sunlight and seasons. This is the story of a discovery that bridged the gap between ancient seas and modern mysteries, a living fossil that connects our prehistoric ocean facts to the ongoing deep-sea mysteries that continue to unfold in waters that remain as alien today as they were millions of years ago. At 3,000 meters beneath the Pacific surface, where the weight of water above creates pressures exceeding anything experienced on land, research expeditions in recent years have encountered something that seems to belong more to the imagination of a science fiction writer than to the catalog of known marine life. The creature discovered on this Pacific seamount appears to be constructed entirely of flowing, translucent strands that move through the water like underwater pasta, its form so fluid and ethereal that initial observers struggled to determine whether they were looking at a single organism or some strange manifestation of deep-sea physics. The spaghetti monster, as it came to be known, represents a type of soft coral that has evolved along paths so unusual that it bears virtually no resemblance to the rigid, branching corals that most people associate with marine reef systems. Instead of building limestone skeletons like its shallow water relatives, this deep-sea marvel has developed a body structure that seems to defy the very concept of form and function as we understand it in biological systems. The creature's tentacle-like extensions, flowing through the water like living ribbons, serve as sophisticated filtering systems that can capture microscopic prey from the nutrient-poor waters of the deep ocean. Each strand moves independently, creating complex patterns in the water that generate currents and eddies, designed to concentrate the sparse food sources available at these extreme depths. It's a feeding strategy that represents millions of years of evolution, fine-tuned for survival in one of Earth's most challenging environments. What makes this discovery particularly fascinating is how it connects to the broader story of life in prehistoric oceans. Fossil evidence suggests that similar soft-bodied organisms have been experimenting with flowing, flexible body plans for hundreds of millions of years. During the Cambrian Explosion, some of the earliest complex life forms developed strategies for filter feeding that may have been very similar to what we see in today's deep-sea spaghetti monsters. The seamount where this creature was discovered represents a type of underwater landscape that has remained relatively unchanged since the Mesozoic era. These underwater mountains, rising from abyssal plains like islands in an ocean of darkness, create unique environments where ancient life forms can persist in isolation, evolving slowly along pathways that might have been common in prehistoric seas, but are now represented by only a few surviving lineages. The flowing form of the spaghetti monster serves multiple purposes beyond simple food capture. The constant motion of its tentacle-like extensions prevents the accumulation of sediment that could clog its filtering systems, while also creating a moving display that may serve to confuse predators or attract prey. In the complete darkness of the deep ocean, where bioluminescence provides the only sources of light, movement becomes a crucial form of communication and survival strategy. The discovery of this creature also highlights the incredible adaptability of coral organisms, which have found ways to thrive in virtually every marine environment on Earth. While their shallow water cousins build vast limestone cities in tropical seas, these deep ocean relatives have abandoned the strategy of skeletal construction in favor of flexibility and fluid motion. It's an evolutionary experiment that demonstrates how life can find completely different solutions to the same basic challenges of survival. The conditions where the spaghetti monster thrives mirror those that existed in Earth's ancient oceans during periods when much of the planet was covered by deep, dark seas. The high pressure, low temperature, and sparse nutrition available at these depths create selection pressures that favor efficiency over speed, flexibility over strength, and patience over aggression. These are the same conditions that shaped life during the early periods of Earth's history, when the oceans were deeper and more extensive than they are today. The feeding behavior of this remarkable creature reveals sophisticated timing mechanisms that allow it to maximize energy capture from the minimal food sources available in the deep ocean. The tentacle-like extensions appear to follow complex patterns of movement that concentrate microscopic prey into areas where specialized feeding structures can capture and process them most efficiently. It's a feeding strategy that represents the endpoint of millions of years of evolution in food-scarce environments. The reproductive strategies of deep-sea soft corals like the spaghetti monster remain largely mysterious, but evidence suggests they may be capable of both sexual and asexual reproduction depending on environmental conditions. This flexibility would allow isolated populations on remote seamounts to persist for thousands of years, while occasionally exchanging genetic material with distant colonies when conditions permit. The seamount ecosystem where this creature was discovered supports a complex web of deep-sea life that includes fish, crustaceans, and other invertebrates that have never been exposed to sunlight. Many of these organisms show characteristics that connect them to ancient lineages, making seamounts like natural museums where visitors can observe life forms that have remained essentially unchanged since prehistoric times. The discovery of the spaghetti monster also demonstrates how much we still don't know about life in the deep ocean. Despite decades of exploration and technological advancement, vast areas of the seafloor remain completely uncharted, and new species are discovered with every expedition to these remote environments. Each discovery adds another piece to the puzzle of how life has adapted to the extreme conditions that exist in the deep sea. The flowing, graceful movements of this deep-sea coral create an almost hypnotic display that seems to transcend the harsh realities of life in the abyss. Watching video footage of the creature in its natural environment, with its translucent tentacles moving in slow, rhythmic patterns through the darkness, creates a sense of witnessing something that exists outside the normal rules of biology and physics. The preservation potential for soft-bodied organisms like the spaghetti monster is generally poor, which means that the fossil record may be missing countless examples of similar creatures that existed in prehistoric oceans. However, rare instances of exceptional preservation have revealed soft corals and other flexible organisms from ancient seas, suggesting that the flowing, tentacled body plan has been a successful strategy for marine life throughout Earth's history. The connection between modern deep-sea discoveries like the spaghetti monster and our understanding of prehistoric ocean life continues to evolve as new specimens are discovered and analyzed. Each finding provides insights into how life has adapted to extreme conditions and how ancient ecosystems might have functioned in environments that were very different from anything we see in today's surface waters. As we drift away from the ethereal realm where spaghetti monsters flow through eternal darkness like living pasta in an underwater kitchen, our journey through prehistoric ocean mysteries takes us to an even more distant time, when the very foundations of complex life were being established by creatures so strange and wonderful that they seemed to belong to an alien world that somehow found its way to Earth. Story 5. When aliens ruled ancient seas. 541 million years ago, something extraordinary happened in Earth's oceans that was so dramatic, so revolutionary, that scientists call it an explosion. But this wasn't the kind of explosion that destroys. It was the kind that creates, filling ancient seas with creatures so bizarre and alien that they seem to have been designed by an intelligence that followed completely different rules of biology than anything we see in our modern world. This is the story of the Cambrian Explosion, when evolution unleashed its wildest creativity and filled prehistoric oceans with monsters that make science fiction seem tame by comparison. Picture an ocean 500 million years ago, before fish had evolved, before there were any creatures with backbones swimming through the water. The seas of the Cambrian period were ruled by arthropods, those segmented creatures with jointed legs and compound eyes that would eventually give rise to modern insects and crustaceans. But in the warm, shallow seas of the Cambrian, these arthropods had evolved into forms so spectacular and terrifying that they dominated marine ecosystems in ways that no arthropod has achieved since. At the apex of this alien food web swam Anomalocaris, a creature that defied every category of life that paleontologists thought they understood. Measuring over 3 feet in length, during an era when most animals were smaller than your thumb, Anomalocaris was built like a living nightmare, crossed with a work of abstract art. Its name, which means strange shrimp, barely begins to capture the otherworldly nature of this predator that ruled Cambrian seas with an authority that no modern ocean predator has ever matched. The body of Anomalocaris was unlike anything that exists today. Imagine a creature with the flexibility of a squid, the compound eyes of a dragonfly magnified to the size of dinner plates, and 2 massive appendages extending from its head, like articulated grappling hooks designed by an alien engineer. These weren't simple claws or tentacles. They were sophisticated prey capture devices, consisting of multiple segments that could bend and flex with surgical precision, allowing Anomalocaris to pluck victims from the seafloor, or snatch them from the water column, with movements too quick for escape. The mouth of this Cambrian terror was perhaps its most alien feature, a circular opening lined with plates that functioned like a biological garbage disposal. This wasn't the simple jaw structure that we see in modern predators, but rather a complex mechanical system that could expand and contract, processing prey with efficiency that bordered on the mechanical. Fossilized stomach contents reveal that Anomalocaris was capable of crushing and consuming trilobites, those armored arthropods that were among the most successful creatures of their era. The hunting strategy employed by Anomalocaris reveals an intelligence and sophistication that challenges our understanding of early animal behavior. These creatures appear to have been ambush predators that could hover motionless in the water column before striking with explosive speed. Their massive compound eyes, each containing thousands of individual lenses, provided vision capabilities that may have exceeded anything in the modern ocean. They could track the movement of prey across vast distances and calculate attack vectors with the precision of guided missiles. But Anomalocaris wasn't the only alien nightmare swimming through Cambrian seas. The fossil beds that preserve this ancient ecosystem reveal a parade of creatures so strange that each new discovery forces scientists to expand their definitions of what constitutes possible body plans for complex life. Opabinia, with its 5 mushroom-shaped eyes and bizarre vacuum cleaner proboscis, looked like something that might have been designed by a committee of surrealist artists. Wiwaxia, covered in defensive spines and scales, resembled a living pincushion that had learned to crawl across the seafloor. The Cambrian oceans were populated by creatures that combined features in ways that seem impossible by modern standards. Hallucigenia, originally reconstructed upside down, because paleontologists couldn't believe that any real animal could look so bizarre, walked on 7 pairs of defensive spines while using another set of appendages for feeding. Its very name reflects the hallucinatory quality that these ancient creatures possess for modern observers, trying to understand how evolution could have produced forms so radically different from anything alive today. The trilobites that served as prey for predators like Anomalocaris were themselves marvels of biological engineering that wouldn't be out of place in a science fiction epic. These armored arthropods developed compound eyes with crystalline lenses that provided vision quality that wouldn't be matched by human technology until the development of modern optical instruments. Some trilobite species could roll into perfect spheres when threatened, while others developed elaborate spines and defensive structures that turned them into living fortresses. The preservation of these incredible creatures in fossil formations, like Canada's Burgess Shale, represents one of the most remarkable windows into ancient life that paleontology has ever discovered. The unique conditions that existed in certain Cambrian environments allowed for the preservation of soft tissues that normally decay within days of death, providing us with detailed pictures of creatures that lived over 500 million years ago. These fossils reveal details down to the individual segments of arthropod legs, and the cellular structure of compound eyes. What makes the Cambrian explosion particularly fascinating is the speed at which it occurred. In geological terms, the diversification of complex life forms during this period happened almost instantaneously, with dozens of major body plans appearing in the fossil record within just a few million years. This rapid experimentation with different approaches to multicellular life produced creatures that explored virtually every possible way of organizing tissues, organs, and appendages into functional organisms. The ocean chemistry during the Cambrian period was dramatically different from today's seas, with higher temperatures, different atmospheric composition, and mineral concentrations that may have facilitated the rapid evolution of hard parts like shells and exoskeletons. These conditions created an environment where evolutionary experimentation could proceed at a pace that seems almost impossible by modern standards, leading to the incredible diversity of forms preserved in Cambrian fossil beds. The food webs that existed in Cambrian oceans were structured in ways that have no modern equivalent. Predators like Anomalocaris occupied ecological niches that combined elements of what we now see distributed among sharks, squid, and other large marine predators. The absence of fish and other vertebrates meant that arthropods could evolve into roles that they would later be unable to maintain once competition from more advanced predators appeared. The sensory capabilities of Cambrian predators appear to have been extraordinarily advanced for such early complex animals. The compound eyes of Anomalocaris contain thousands of individual lenses, arranged in patterns that maximize light-gathering ability and motion detection. Some researchers suggest that these eyes may have been capable of detecting polarized light or other visual information that provided hunting advantages in the unique lighting conditions of Cambrian seas. The defensive strategies that evolved in response to Cambrian predators were equally innovative and bizarre. Some creatures developed shells and armor that were essentially living bunkers, while others adopted camouflage strategies or evolved the ability to burrow rapidly into sediment when threatened. The arms race between predators and prey during this period drove evolutionary innovation at a pace that wouldn't be seen again until much later in Earth's history. The decline of many Cambrian body plans and the eventual dominance of more familiar forms raises profound questions about the nature of evolutionary success. Many of the most spectacular Cambrian creatures left no descendants, representing evolutionary experiments that flourished briefly before being replaced by organisms with body plans that proved more adaptable to changing conditions. The alien-like forms that dominated Cambrian seas remind us that evolution doesn't necessarily progress toward greater complexity or intelligence, but simply toward whatever works in a given environment at a particular time. The legacy of the Cambrian explosion extends far beyond the spectacular fossils it left behind. This period established many of the fundamental patterns of predation, defense, and ecological interaction that continue to shape marine ecosystems today. The basic toolkit of vision, mobility, and prey capture that was developed during the Cambrian continues to influence how ocean predators operate, even though the specific forms have changed dramatically over the intervening millions of years. As we drift away from the alien seas, where Anomalocaris stalked trilobites beneath skies that had never known birds, leaving behind the experimental laboratory where evolution unleashed its wildest creativity, our journey through prehistoric ocean mysteries takes us to a time of endings and beginnings, when the greatest catastrophe in Earth's history created opportunities for entirely new forms of life to emerge from the ruins of ancient ecosystems. Story 6. When oceans rose from ashes. 66 million years ago, the Earth experienced a catastrophe so complete, so utterly devastating, that it marks one of the most dramatic chapters in the history of life on our planet. The asteroid that slammed into what is now the Gulf of Mexico didn't just end the age of dinosaurs, it transformed the very nature of existence in Earth's oceans, creating a marine apocalypse that wiped out creatures that had ruled the seas for millions of years. Yet from this underwater devastation emerged one of the most inspiring stories of recovery and renewal that our planet's history has to offer. A tale of resilience that speaks directly to the American spirit of bouncing back from disaster stronger than before. The immediate aftermath of the asteroid impact was like nothing our planet had experienced since its earliest formation. The collision released energy equivalent to billions of nuclear weapons, sending shock waves through the Earth's crust and launching debris into space that would eventually rain back down as molten glass spheres. But it was the impact on marine ecosystems that created the most dramatic and long-lasting changes, transforming thriving underwater communities into underwater wastelands almost overnight. In the fossil-rich formations of North Dakota, paleontologists have uncovered a remarkable record of this transition, preserved in layers of rock that tell the story day by day, year by year, of how life in American waters responded to the greatest challenge it had ever faced. The boundary between the Cretaceous and Paleogene periods, marked by a thin layer of clay enriched with elements rare on Earth, but common in asteroids, represents a dividing line between two completely different worlds. Below this boundary layer, the fossils tell stories of abundance and diversity that rival anything in our modern oceans. Massive ammonites with shells spanning several feet dominated the water column, while giant marine reptiles like mosasaurs and plesiosaurs ruled as apex predators in warm, shallow seas that covered much of what is now the American Great Plains. Schools of ancient fish filled these waters in numbers that staggers the imagination, creating marine ecosystems of a richness and complexity that took millions of years to develop. Above the boundary layer, the story becomes one of devastation and emptiness that lasted for thousands of years. The fossil record shows a marine world stripped of its giants, where the massive predators and prey animals that had defined ocean food webs for the entire Mesozoic era simply vanished, leaving behind only the smallest, most adaptable creatures to inherit a transformed aquatic world. The ocean chemistry itself was dramatically altered by the impact event. Massive amounts of dust and debris in the atmosphere blocked sunlight for months or even years, shutting down photosynthesis and causing marine food webs to collapse from the bottom up. The microscopic plankton that formed the foundation of marine ecosystems died en masse, creating a cascade of starvation that eliminated larger and larger creatures as the months and years passed. But within this story of devastation lies one of the most remarkable tales of recovery and adaptation that the natural world has ever produced. The creatures that survived the extinction event weren't necessarily the strongest or the largest. They were the most adaptable, the most resourceful, and often the smallest. These survivors would go on to refill the emptied ecological niches with an explosion of evolutionary creativity that rivals the famous Cambrian diversification. The recovery process, preserved in exquisite detail in American fossil formations, reveals how quickly life can bounce back when given the opportunity. Within just a few million years, a geological instant, new types of fish had evolved to fill the roles previously occupied by extinct marine reptiles. Sharks, which had been relatively minor players in Mesozoic marine ecosystems, rapidly diversified into larger, more sophisticated predators that would eventually produce some of the most successful marine hunters our planet has ever seen. The small mammals that survived the asteroid impact on land had their marine counterparts in the form of early whales and other marine mammals that would eventually return to the sea. These air-breathing ocean dwellers represented completely new solutions to the challenges of marine predation, developing echolocation, complex social behaviors, and hunting strategies that the reptilian predators of the Mesozoic had never evolved. Perhaps most remarkably, the recovery process wasn't just about replacing what had been lost. It was about creating entirely new forms of marine life that were often more sophisticated and successful than their predecessors. The fish that evolved to fill the empty oceans developed more efficient swimming techniques, more complex sensory systems, and more adaptable feeding strategies than many of the creatures they replaced. The fossil sites in North Dakota that preserve this recovery period reveal a fascinating pattern of rapid experimentation followed by gradual refinement. Early post-impact fish fossils show a bewildering variety of forms and sizes, as if evolution was trying out every possible approach to marine life before settling on the most successful designs. Many of these experimental forms disappeared after just a few million years, but the ones that survived became the ancestors of the diverse marine communities we see today. The speed of recovery in different marine environments varied dramatically depending on local conditions. Areas with access to nutrient-rich upwelling currents recovered much faster than isolated basins, while shallow coastal environments bounced back more quickly than deep ocean regions. This pattern of variable recovery created a patchwork of marine ecosystems across the globe, each following its own timeline toward renewed abundance. The role of small, overlooked creatures in driving the recovery process cannot be overstated. Tiny fish species that had lived in the shadow of giant marine reptiles suddenly found themselves in empty oceans with unlimited opportunities for expansion. These small survivors rapidly evolved into larger forms, developing new feeding strategies and occupying ecological niches that had been vacant since the extinction event. The plankton communities that formed the foundation of post-impact marine food webs were completely reorganized, with new species taking over the roles previously filled by extinct forms. This reorganization created opportunities for innovation in feeding strategies, with some post-impact fish developing specialized filter feeding mechanisms that allowed them to exploit plankton communities more efficiently than their predecessors. The evolution of new predator-prey relationships in post-impact oceans led to some of the most successful marine ecosystems in Earth's history. The arms race between evolving predators and their prey drove rapid innovation in swimming speed, sensory capabilities, and defensive strategies, creating marine communities that were often more dynamic and efficient than those that had existed before the extinction event. The American fossil record of this recovery period provides unique insights into how ecosystems rebuild themselves after catastrophic disruption. The detailed preservation of fish skeletons, scales, and even stomach contents in formations like those found in Wyoming and Montana reveals not just what species existed, but how they lived, what they ate, and how they interacted with other members of their communities. The legacy of this marine recovery extends far beyond the immediate post-impact period. Many of the fundamental patterns of modern marine ecosystems can be traced back to innovations that first appeared during the rapid diversification that followed the asteroid impact. The basic structure of modern food webs, the relationships between predators and prey, and even the migration patterns of many species have their roots in the recovery period that began 66 million years ago. The story of marine recovery after the asteroid impact serves as a powerful reminder that even the most devastating catastrophes can create opportunities for renewal and innovation. The oceans that emerged from the post-impact darkness were not diminished copies of what had come before. They were new creations that often surpassed their predecessors in diversity, complexity, and beauty. As we drift away from the recovery waters where new forms of marine life bloomed like underwater flowers after the longest winter in Earth's history, our journey through prehistoric ocean mysteries takes us beyond our own planet to consider the possibility that the story of ancient seas might not be unique to Earth. From the triumph of terrestrial recovery, we now look to the stars to explore evidence of prehistoric oceans on a world that might once have harbored life forms as strange and wonderful as any that ever swam through Earth's ancient waters. Story 7. The Lost Ocean of Another World. In the vast expanse of our solar system, where planets circle our sun in the cosmic dance that has continued for billions of years, there exists evidence of prehistoric oceans that challenge our understanding of where life might once have flourished beyond Earth. This isn't a story about our own planet's ancient waters, but about a neighboring world that may have once possessed seas as vast and potentially life-bearing as any that ever existed on Earth. This is the story of Mars, the red planet that American space exploration has revealed to be far more complex and mysterious than anyone could have imagined. Through the dedicated work of NASA missions spanning decades, from the Viking landers of the 1970s to the sophisticated rovers exploring Martian terrain today, American space science has uncovered compelling evidence that Mars once harbored an ocean covering much of its northern hemisphere. This wasn't a small sea or a collection of lakes, but a vast body of water that may have been up to a mile deep and covered nearly a third of the planet's surface, creating conditions that could have supported life forms as complex as any that existed in Earth's prehistoric oceans. The evidence for this lost Martian ocean lies written in the planet's geography in ways that are invisible to casual observation, but unmistakable to trained scientists. Topographic maps created by orbiting spacecraft reveal ancient shorelines that follow the contours of what were once coastal regions, complete with features that mirror the wave-cut terraces and tidal deposits that characterize coastlines on Earth. These shorelines can be traced for thousands of miles across the Martian surface, marking the boundaries of a water body that dwarfed any lake or sea currently existing on our own planet. The timing of this Martian ocean places it in the earliest period of the red planet's history, when the solar system was young, and conditions throughout our cosmic neighborhood were dramatically different from what we observe today. During this ancient era, Mars possessed a much thicker atmosphere and a significantly warmer climate, creating conditions that could have maintained liquid water on the surface for millions or even billions of years. This extended period of habitability represents a window of time when life might have evolved and flourished in Martian seas. The geological formations that provide evidence for ancient Martian water activity reveal a planet that once experienced weather patterns, erosion cycles, and hydrological processes similar to those that have shaped Earth throughout its history. River deltas, preserved in Martian rock formations, show where ancient streams flowed into larger bodies of water, depositing sediments in patterns that mirror the deltaic formations found at the mouths of Earth's great rivers. These features suggest not just the presence of water, but the existence of sustained hydrological cycles that could have supported complex ecosystems. The mineral compositions discovered by American rovers exploring the Martian surface provide additional evidence for ancient aquatic environments. Clay minerals that form only in the presence of liquid water have been found throughout regions that would have been covered by the hypothetical Northern Ocean, while salt deposits indicate areas where ancient seas may have evaporated, leaving behind concentrated brines similar to those found in Earth's most extreme aquatic environments. Perhaps most intriguingly, the analysis of Martian meteorites that have fallen to Earth reveals isotopic signatures that suggest the red planet once possessed significant amounts of liquid water. These space rocks, blasted off the Martian surface by asteroid impacts, and eventually captured by Earth's gravity, carry chemical fingerprints that tell the story of a world where water played a major role in shaping both geology and potentially biology. The search for evidence of ancient Martian life has become one of the primary objectives of American space exploration, with rovers specifically designed to investigate areas where ancient water activity created conditions most favorable for the development and preservation of biological materials. The discovery of organic compounds in Martian rocks, while not definitive proof of life, demonstrates that the chemical building blocks necessary for biology were present and preserved in environments where ancient oceans might have supported living ecosystems. The loss of Mars's ancient ocean represents one of the most dramatic climate changes documented in our solar system. As the red planet's atmosphere gradually escaped to space, surface temperatures dropped below the freezing point of water, and the vast northern sea slowly evaporated or froze, leaving behind only the geological evidence that modern spacecraft have revealed. This transformation from a potentially habitable water world to the cold, dry desert we observe today occurred over hundreds of millions of years. The implications of ancient Martian oceans extend far beyond academic curiosity about our planetary neighbor. If life once existed in Martian seas, it would represent the first confirmed example of biology beyond Earth, fundamentally changing our understanding of how common life might be throughout the universe. The possibility that two planets in our own solar system independently developed conditions suitable for life suggests that habitable worlds might be far more common than previously imagined. The American rovers currently exploring Mars continue to search for definitive evidence of ancient life in areas where geological evidence suggests long-lasting bodies of water once existed. These robotic explorers are equipped with sophisticated instruments capable of detecting organic molecules, analyzing mineral compositions, and even listening for subsurface water that might represent remnants of the planet's ancient ocean system. The connection between Mars's lost ocean and our understanding of Earth's prehistoric seas lies in the recognition that planetary oceans represent temporary features in cosmic terms, existing only when atmospheric and geological conditions align to support liquid water on planetary surfaces. Earth's oceans have persisted for billions of years, but Mars demonstrates that even substantial bodies of water can disappear when planetary conditions change. The study of ancient Martian water features has provided insights into how oceans form and evolve on rocky planets throughout the solar system. The processes that created and eventually destroyed Mars's northern ocean mirror, in many ways, the geological and atmospheric forces that have shaped Earth's oceans throughout our planet's history. Understanding these processes helps scientists predict how Earth's own oceans might evolve in the deep future. The technological achievements required to detect and analyze evidence of ancient Martian oceans represent some of the most sophisticated scientific instruments ever created by American aerospace engineering. The ability to identify mineral compositions, analyze isotopic ratios, and map geological features from millions of miles away demonstrates the incredible capabilities that human ingenuity can achieve when focused on exploring the unknown. Future missions to Mars will likely focus on drilling into areas where ancient ocean sediments might preserve more detailed records of past environmental conditions and potentially biological activity. These investigations will require even more advanced technology, including the capability to return Martian samples to Earth for detailed laboratory analysis that could finally answer questions about whether life once existed in the red planet's prehistoric oceans. The story of Mars's lost ocean serves as both an inspiration and a cautionary tale about the fragility of planetary environments. It demonstrates that conditions suitable for life can exist on multiple worlds within a single solar system, while also showing how quickly, in cosmic terms, those conditions can change. The red planet's ancient seas remind us that our own ocean world represents a precious and potentially temporary arrangement of conditions that have allowed life to flourish. The search for evidence of ancient Martian life continues to drive American space exploration, with each new mission adding pieces to the puzzle of whether our planetary neighbor once hosted its own version of the prehistoric ocean facts that we've been exploring throughout our journey. The possibility that life once swam in Martian seas adds an extra dimension of wonder to our appreciation of ancient waters wherever they might have existed. As we drift away from the lost shorelines of Mars, where ancient waves may once have lapped at alien beaches under skies we can barely imagine, our journey through prehistoric ocean mysteries brings us back to Earth to explore the incredible diversity of life that evolved in our own ancient seas during an era when the very definition of success was being written by creatures that would dominate marine ecosystems longer than any other group in Earth's history. Story 8. The Armored Emperors of Ancient Seas. In the vast timeline of life on Earth, few groups of creatures have achieved the kind of sustained dominance that defines true evolutionary success. While dinosaurs ruled terrestrial environments for roughly 165 million years, and mammals have dominated land ecosystems for about 65 million years, there existed a group of marine creatures whose reign lasted an almost incomprehensible 300 million years, making them the most successful complex animals in Earth's history. These were the trilobites, the armored emperors of ancient seas, whose fossilized remains scattered across American rock formations tell the story of evolutionary triumph on a scale that dwarfs any other group of complex life forms. From the explosive diversification of the Cambrian period through the great dying of the Permian extinction, trilobites ruled marine ecosystems with a diversity and adaptability that modern marine life can barely match. In the fossil-rich formations of Utah, Nevada, and other western states, paleontologists have uncovered evidence of over 20,000 different trilobite species, each one representing a unique solution to the challenges of life in prehistoric oceans. This incredible diversity demonstrates an evolutionary experiment in living that tried virtually every possible approach to marine existence. The basic trilobite body plan was a masterpiece of biological engineering that proved so successful it remained essentially unchanged for hundreds of millions of years. These arthropods, related to modern insects and crustaceans, developed a segmented body divided into 3 distinct lobes, giving them their name and providing a flexible yet armored design that could be modified for countless different lifestyles. Some trilobites were swift swimmers that pursued prey through open water, while others were heavily armored bottom dwellers that scavenged the seafloor. Still others developed elaborate filtering mechanisms that allowed them to strain nutrients from the water column like living plankton nets. Perhaps the most remarkable feature of trilobite evolution was their development of the world's first sophisticated vision systems. The compound eyes that adorned many trilobite species weren't simple light-detecting organs, but complex optical instruments that used crystalline lenses made of calcite to focus light with remarkable precision. Some trilobite eyes contained over 15,000 individual lenses, providing vision capabilities that wouldn't be matched by human technology until the development of modern optical instruments. These eyes could detect movement, judge distances, and even perceive polarized light, giving trilobites sensory capabilities that made them among the most aware creatures in ancient oceans. The defensive innovations developed by trilobites in response to predation pressure created some of the most spectacular fossils ever discovered in American rock formations. Some species evolved the ability to roll into perfect spheres when threatened, tucking their heads and tails together to create an armored ball that protected their soft undersides from attack. Other species developed elaborate spines, horns, and defensive structures that turned them into living fortresses capable of deterring all but the most determined predators. The feeding strategies employed by different trilobite species reveal an ecological diversity that rivals modern marine ecosystems. Filter-feeding species developed elaborate appendages that could strain microscopic prey from the water, while predatory species evolved powerful claws and cutting implements that could dismember other arthropods with surgical precision. Some trilobites became specialized scavengers that cleaned up organic debris on the seafloor, while others developed the ability to burrow into sediment to hunt for buried prey. The trace fossils left behind by trilobite activity provide remarkable insights into how these creatures lived and behaved in their ancient marine environments. Fossilized burrows reveal complex tunneling systems that some species used for protection and feeding, while trackways preserved in stone show how trilobites moved across the seafloor in organized groups that suggest sophisticated social behaviors. Some trackway fossils even preserve evidence of trilobite mating behavior, with individuals following each other in long chains that may have been related to reproductive activities. The global distribution of trilobite fossils demonstrates just how successful these creatures were at colonizing every available marine environment. From shallow tropical seas to deep ocean basins, from polar regions to equatorial waters, trilobites adapted to virtually every aquatic niche available during their long reign. American fossil sites have yielded trilobite specimens from environments ranging from ancient coral reefs to deep-sea mudflats, showing that these versatile arthropods could thrive wherever liquid water existed. The evolutionary arms race between trilobites and their predators drove innovation on both sides of the predator-prey relationship throughout the Paleozoic era. As trilobites developed more sophisticated defensive mechanisms, predators evolved new hunting strategies and weapons to overcome these defenses. This constant pressure for improvement led to increasingly elaborate trilobite designs, with some species developing defensive spines so complex that they resembled organic works of art more than functional biological structures. The incredible diversity of trilobite eye designs reveals the importance of vision in ancient marine ecosystems. Some species developed eyes on tall stalks that could peer over obstacles or watch for predators while the rest of the body remained hidden. Others evolved eyes that could rotate independently, providing all-around vision that made surprise attacks nearly impossible. A few species even developed eyes with built-in sunshades that protected their sensitive optical equipment from bright light and shallow water environments. The molting process that trilobites underwent as they grew has provided paleontologists with unprecedented insights into arthropod development and behavior. Complete molt series found in American fossil sites show how trilobites changed throughout their lives, often dramatically altering their body proportions and defensive features as they matured. Some species underwent such radical transformations during molting that different life stages were originally classified as separate species until complete developmental sequences were discovered. The social behaviors exhibited by some trilobite species challenged traditional assumptions about the complexity of ancient animal communities. Mass mortality sites in American formations preserve evidence of large trilobite gatherings that may have been related to mating, molting, or migration activities. These congregations sometimes involved thousands of individuals, suggesting that trilobites were capable of the kind of coordinated group behaviors that we associate with much more advanced animals. The decline and eventual extinction of trilobites represents one of the most dramatic endings in the history of life on Earth. As ocean chemistry changed during the late Paleozoic, and competition from new types of marine predators intensified, trilobite diversity began to decrease. The final trilobite species disappeared during the Great Permian extinction, ending a success story that had lasted longer than any other group of complex animals has ever achieved. The legacy of trilobite success extends far beyond their impressive fossil record. These creatures essentially invented many of the survival strategies that continue to define successful marine life today. Their innovations in vision, defensive armor, burrowing behavior, and predator avoidance techniques established patterns that modern arthropods still follow. The basic body plan that made trilobites so successful provided the evolutionary foundation for insects, crustaceans, and other arthropods that continue to dominate both marine and terrestrial environments. The study of trilobite fossils has revolutionized our understanding of ancient ecosystems and evolutionary processes. The detailed preservation of trilobite remains in American rock formations has allowed scientists to reconstruct ancient marine environments with unprecedented accuracy, revealing how ocean communities functioned during Earth's Middle Age. These insights have provided crucial information about how ecosystems respond to environmental changes and how evolutionary innovation drives long-term biological success. The incredible variety of trilobite forms found in American fossil sites continues to amaze researchers and fossil enthusiasts alike. From tiny species smaller than a coin, to giants with bodies over 2 feet long, from sleek swimmers to heavily armored crawlers, the trilobite fossil record represents a catalog of evolutionary creativity that demonstrates just how many different ways life can solve the same basic problems of survival and reproduction. As we drift away from the ancient seafloors, where armored trilobites scuttled through forests of primitive corals and strange sea lilies, leaving behind their incredible legacy of evolutionary success and innovation, our journey through prehistoric ocean mysteries takes us to discover how the ancient marine life we've been exploring has provided unexpected benefits for modern human society, revealing connections between prehistoric seas and contemporary medicine that demonstrate the ongoing relevance of these ancient ocean facts. Story 9. Ancient Healers of the Deep. In the intersection between prehistoric ocean mysteries and modern medical miracles lies one of the most remarkable stories of how ancient life continues to benefit humanity today. 500 million years ago, when trilobites were beginning their long reign and the first complex ecosystems were taking shape in Earth's prehistoric oceans, there evolved a group of creatures whose biological innovations would eventually revolutionize human medicine in ways that no one could have anticipated. These are the echinoderms, the spiny-skinned masters of regeneration, whose descendants continue to teach us about healing, immunity, and the incredible potential that lies hidden in the sea. The fossil record preserved in American rock formations, from Colorado to New York, reveals that echinoderms, including sea stars, sea urchins, and their relatives, have been perfecting the art of biological restoration for longer than almost any other group of complex animals. These creatures didn't just survive the major extinction events that wiped out countless other species. They thrived by developing biological capabilities that seem almost magical by modern standards. The ability to regrow entire limbs, regenerate damaged organs, and maintain immune systems that resist diseases has made echinoderms living laboratories for medical research. The regenerative powers of ancient echinoderms, preserved in fossilized specimens that show clear evidence of regrown body parts, represent one of evolution's most successful experiments in biological repair. Unlike humans and most other vertebrates, which respond to injury by forming scar tissue, echinoderms can completely restore lost or damaged structures to their original form and function. A sea star that loses an arm doesn't simply heal over the wound. It grows back the entire appendage, complete with muscles, nerves, sensory organs, and even reproductive tissues. This extraordinary regenerative ability has captured the attention of medical researchers working on some of humanity's most challenging health problems. The cellular mechanisms that allow echinoderms to regrow complex tissues are being studied as potential solutions for treating spinal cord injuries, organ damage, and degenerative diseases. The genetic pathways that control echinoderm regeneration could potentially be activated in human cells, opening up possibilities for medical treatments that seem like science fiction. The immune systems of echinoderms represent another area where ancient evolution has produced innovations that continue to inspire modern medicine. These creatures possess immune responses that are both simpler and more effective than those found in more complex animals. Instead of the elaborate adaptive immune systems that mammals use to fight infections, echinoderms rely on innate immunity that can instantly recognize and destroy harmful organisms, without the need for prior exposure or memory formation. The antimicrobial compounds produced by echinoderm immune systems have proven particularly valuable in the development of new antibiotics. As human pathogens become increasingly resistant to traditional medications, researchers are turning to the biochemical warfare strategies that sea stars and sea urchins have been perfecting for hundreds of millions of years. These creatures produce natural antibiotics that are effective against bacteria, viruses, and fungi that cause serious human diseases. Perhaps most remarkably, the blood of certain echinoderms contains cells called coalomocytes that function as living quality control systems, capable of detecting and neutralizing toxins with extraordinary precision. These cellular guardians patrol the echinoderm's body fluids, identifying and destroying harmful substances before they can cause damage. Medical researchers studying these natural detoxification systems have discovered principles that are being applied to develop new treatments for poisoning, drug overdoses, and environmental toxin exposure. The fossilized remains of ancient echinoderms found in American formations reveal that these regenerative and immune capabilities have remained essentially unchanged for hundreds of millions of years. Specimens from the Ordovician period show evidence of healed injuries and regrown structures that demonstrate the same remarkable recovery abilities displayed by modern species. This evolutionary consistency suggests that echinoderms discovered biological solutions so effective that they haven't needed significant modification, despite massive environmental changes. The spiny structures that give echinoderms their name represent another area where ancient evolution has produced innovations with modern medical applications. The calcium carbonate spines and plates that form echinoderm skeletons are constructed using biological processes that create materials stronger and more flexible than many human-engineered substances. These natural composites are inspiring the development of new biomaterials for bone replacement, dental implants, and surgical devices. The neural networks that control echinoderm behavior, despite being much simpler than those found in vertebrates, exhibit remarkable plasticity and learning capabilities. Sea stars can navigate complex environments, remember feeding locations, and coordinate the movement of multiple arms without centralized brain control. This distributed intelligence model is providing insights for developing new approaches to treating neurological disorders and brain injuries. The chemical communication systems used by echinoderms have revealed sophisticated molecular signaling pathways that regulate everything from feeding behavior to reproductive cycles. Many of these signaling molecules have proven to have therapeutic effects when tested in human cell cultures, leading to the development of new medications for treating cancer, heart disease, and metabolic disorders. The pharmaceutical potential of echinoderm biochemistry represents a largely untapped resource that could yield hundreds of new medical treatments. The study of echinoderm development has provided crucial insights into how complex multicellular organisms form from single cells. The transparent embryos of sea urchins have served as model systems for understanding fundamental biological processes like cell division, tissue formation, and organ development. These insights have direct applications in regenerative medicine, where scientists are working to grow replacement organs and tissues for human patients. The anti-cancer properties discovered in various echinoderm species have opened up entirely new avenues for cancer research. Some sea stars produce compounds that can selectively kill cancer cells while leaving healthy tissue unharmed, a property that makes them ideal candidates for developing targeted cancer therapies. The mechanisms by which these creatures protect themselves from developing tumors are being studied as potential strategies for cancer prevention in humans. The longevity of many echinoderm species has attracted attention from researchers studying aging and age-related diseases. Some sea urchins can live for over 200 years while maintaining the regenerative capabilities of much younger animals. Understanding how these creatures avoid the cellular damage that causes aging in other animals could lead to treatments that extend healthy human lifespan and prevent age-related illnesses. The environmental adaptations that have allowed echinoderms to survive in some of Earth's most challenging marine environments are providing insights for developing medical treatments for extreme conditions. Species that thrive in high-pressure deep-sea environments produce proteins that remain stable under conditions that would destroy most biological molecules. These pressure-resistant biomolecules are being studied for potential applications in treating conditions related to pressure changes, such as decompression sickness in divers. The seasonal dormancy capabilities of some echinoderm species have revealed biological mechanisms for slowing metabolism and preserving tissue integrity during periods of stress. These natural hibernation systems are being investigated as potential treatments for extending the viability of transplant organs, protecting tissues during surgery, and helping patients survive medical emergencies when normal treatment options are unavailable. The symbiotic relationships that many echinoderms maintain with beneficial bacteria have provided new perspectives on the role of microbial communities in health and disease. The balanced ecosystems of microorganisms that live within echinoderm bodies help maintain immune function and prevent harmful infections. Understanding these relationships is contributing to the development of probiotic therapies and new approaches to treating antibiotic-resistant infections. The mechanical properties of echinoderm tube feet, which can create incredibly strong adhesion to surfaces while remaining easily detachable, have inspired the development of new surgical adhesives and wound closure systems. These biological attachment mechanisms work effectively underwater and on wet surfaces, making them ideal models for medical applications where traditional adhesives fail. The research into echinoderm biology represents one of the most promising frontiers in biomedical science, where ancient evolutionary solutions are being adapted to solve modern medical challenges. The National Institutes of Health and other American research institutions have invested heavily in studying these creatures, recognizing their potential to revolutionize treatments for diseases that have plagued humanity throughout history. The pharmaceutical industry's growing interest in marine-derived medications has led to increased exploration of echinoderm biochemistry, with dozens of potential new drugs currently in various stages of development and testing. These natural products represent alternatives to synthetic medications that often have fewer side effects and greater specificity in their therapeutic actions. The conservation implications of echinoderm medical research have created new incentives for protecting marine environments where these valuable species live. The realization that sea stars and sea urchins could hold keys to treating human diseases has added economic and humanitarian arguments to the environmental case for ocean conservation, demonstrating that protecting prehistoric ocean life forms benefits human society in tangible, measurable ways. The educational value of echinoderm research extends beyond medical applications to inspire new generations of scientists and researchers. Students studying these ancient creatures learn not only about biology and medicine, but about the interconnectedness of all life and the importance of preserving biodiversity for future discoveries. The story of how 500-million-year-old evolutionary innovations continue to benefit modern medicine serves as a powerful example of why we must continue exploring and protecting the natural world. As we drift away from the regenerating realm where ancient echinoderms continue their patient work of biological restoration, carrying within their simple bodies the solutions to some of humanity's most complex medical challenges, our journey through prehistoric ocean mysteries takes us to an even more ancient time, when the very first stirrings of complex life were beginning to experiment with the idea of leaving the seafloor behind and venturing into the vast three-dimensional space of the open ocean. Story 10. The submarine discovery that rewrote human history. In the realm of prehistoric ocean mysteries, few discoveries have proven as startling as finding evidence of ancient human activity preserved beneath the waves, connecting our understanding of early human migration to the deep-sea mysteries that continue to unfold in marine environments around the world. The story we're about to explore bridges the gap between our prehistoric ocean facts and the fascinating chapter of human evolution, revealing how the sea has served not just as a habitat for ancient marine life, but as a highway and archive for our own species' remarkable journey across the planet. In the waters surrounding Taiwan, where modern fishermen cast their nets in search of contemporary catches, a discovery emerged that challenged everything anthropologists thought they knew about early human migration patterns and coastal adaptation. Preserved in marine sediments that had accumulated over hundreds of thousands of years, researchers uncovered a jawbone that belonged to a Denisovan, one of humanity's closest extinct relatives, dating back approximately 200,000 years. This wasn't just another ancient human fossil. It was evidence that our prehistoric cousins had developed sophisticated relationships with marine environments far earlier than anyone had previously imagined. The Denisovans represent one of the most enigmatic chapters in human evolutionary history. Known primarily from fragmentary remains discovered in Siberian caves, these ancient humans were contemporaries of Neanderthals and early modern humans, possessing their own unique genetic signature that continues to influence populations throughout Asia and the Pacific. The discovery of Denisovan remains in marine contexts suggests that these early humans weren't just occasional visitors to coastal environments, but may have been among the world's first maritime specialists. The preservation of human remains in marine sediments requires extraordinary circumstances that occur only rarely in the archaeological record. The Denisovan jawbone found in Taiwanese waters had been protected from decay by rapid burial in oxygen-poor sediments that prevented the usual processes of decomposition. The mineral-rich marine environment actually helped to fossilize the bone, preserving not just its physical structure, but also traces of ancient DNA that have provided unprecedented insights into Denisovan biology and behavior. The location of this remarkable discovery, in waters that would have been dry land during periods of lower sea level, tells a story of dramatic environmental change that connects prehistoric human activity to the broader narrative of ocean-level fluctuations throughout Earth's history. During ice ages, when vast amounts of water were locked up in continental glaciers, sea levels dropped by hundreds of feet, exposing coastal plains that are now submerged beneath modern oceans. These exposed lands provided corridors for human migration and areas for settlement that are now preserved only in underwater archaeological sites. The evidence suggests that Denisovans living along these ancient coastlines developed sophisticated strategies for exploiting marine resources that went far beyond simple beachcombing or opportunistic fishing. The location of the jawbone and sediments that also contain marine shells, fish bones, and other evidence of coastal activity indicates that these early humans were actively engaging with ocean environments in ways that required considerable knowledge and skill. The implications of Denisovan coastal adaptation extend far beyond simple survival strategies to suggest that early humans may have been among the first creatures to deliberately exploit the interface between terrestrial and marine environments. This ecological flexibility would have provided significant advantages during periods of environmental change, allowing human populations to maintain stable food sources even when terrestrial resources became scarce due to climate fluctuations. The preservation of Denisovan remains in marine contexts also highlights the ocean's role as an archive of human history that extends back far longer than traditional archaeological sites on land. Underwater environments can preserve organic materials for hundreds of thousands of years under conditions that would destroy them within decades in terrestrial settings. This means that the seafloor may contain a treasure trove of information about early human behavior that has barely begun to be explored. The genetic analysis of the Denisovan jawbone revealed traces of marine-derived nutrients in the bone chemistry, providing direct evidence that these early humans were consuming significant amounts of seafood as part of their regular diet. This marine protein source would have provided crucial nutrients for brain development and overall health, potentially contributing to the cognitive capabilities that made Denisovans successful competitors with other early human species. The technological innovations required for effective coastal exploitation by Denisovans would have included the development of tools for fishing, shellfish collection, and possibly even simple watercraft for accessing offshore resources. While these organic technologies rarely survive in the archaeological record, their existence can be inferred from the success that Denisovans achieved in coastal environments and their apparent ability to migrate across water barriers. The discovery of Denisovan remains in Taiwanese waters also provides insights into early human migration patterns that challenge traditional models of how our species spread across the globe. Rather than following purely terrestrial routes, it appears that early humans may have used coastal environments as highways for long-distance migration, following shorelines that provided reliable food sources and relatively predictable environmental conditions. The relationship between Denisovans and marine environments may have played a crucial role in their genetic legacy, which continues to influence modern human populations throughout the Pacific region. Populations in Melanesia, Australia, and Southeast Asia carry significant amounts of Denisovan DNA, suggesting that the maritime adaptations developed by these early humans contributed to their successful colonization of island environments that required sophisticated navigation and ocean crossing capabilities. The study of underwater Denisovan sites represents a new frontier in maritime archaeology that combines traditional anthropological methods with advanced marine exploration technologies. Submersibles, underwater rovers, and sophisticated mapping systems are revealing archaeological sites that have been hidden beneath the waves for hundreds of thousands of years, opening up entirely new chapters in the story of human evolution and adaptation. The preservation conditions that allowed the Denisovan jawbone to survive in marine sediments also suggest that similar discoveries may be waiting to be found in underwater sites around the world. As sea levels have fluctuated throughout human evolutionary history, countless archaeological sites that were once on dry land are now submerged, potentially containing evidence of early human behavior that could revolutionize our understanding of prehistoric human capabilities. The connection between Denisovan coastal adaptation and modern human maritime technologies reveals a continuity of innovation that spans hundreds of thousands of years. The same environmental challenges that drove Denisovan technological development continue to influence human interaction with marine environments today, from sustainable fishing practices to offshore exploration technologies. The interdisciplinary nature of underwater archaeological research requires collaboration between marine biologists, geologists, anthropologists, and technology specialists, creating new approaches to understanding both human evolution and ocean sciences. The techniques developed for studying underwater Denisovan sites are also contributing to broader efforts to understand how prehistoric ocean environments influence the evolution of all marine life. The discovery of Denisovan remains in marine contexts has also raised important questions about the preservation and protection of underwater archaeological sites. These submerged locations contain irreplaceable information about human evolutionary history, but they are also vulnerable to damage from fishing activities, coastal development, and climate change effects that are altering ocean chemistry and sea levels. The ongoing exploration of underwater Denisovan sites continues to yield new discoveries that are expanding our understanding of early human adaptability and innovation. Each new finding adds pieces to the puzzle of how our species developed the cognitive and technological capabilities that eventually allowed humans to become the dominant species on Earth, demonstrating that the ocean has played a crucial role in human evolution from our earliest beginnings. As we surface from the submerged landscapes where Denisovans once walked along ancient shorelines, leaving behind their fossilized remains as testament to humanity's long relationship with the sea, our journey through prehistoric ocean mysteries takes us back to the very beginning of life itself, to a time when the ocean was not just the habitat for life, but the birthplace where the first stirrings of biological complexity began their epic journey toward the incredible diversity we see today. Story 11. The First Whisper of Life. In the vast timeline of our prehistoric ocean mysteries, there exists a chapter so fundamental, so utterly foundational to everything we've explored tonight, that it represents the beginning of all biological stories that would ever be told on Earth. 3.5 billion years ago, when our planet was a hostile world of volcanic fury and toxic atmosphere, when the continents were unrecognizable masses of cooling rock, and when the very concept of life seemed impossible, something extraordinary happened in the dark depths of ancient seas that would change the universe forever. This is the story of life's first tentative whisper in Earth's primordial oceans. A tale that begins not with the complex creatures we've been exploring, but with organisms so simple, so seemingly insignificant, that they barely qualify as life by our modern definitions. Yet these microscopic pioneers would prove to be the most important characters in Earth's entire biological narrative, setting in motion evolutionary processes that would eventually fill the seas with megalodons, trilobites, and all the incredible prehistoric ocean facts we've discovered together. The ancient oceans where life first appeared were unlike anything that exists on Earth today. The water was scalding hot, heated by constant volcanic activity that turned the seafloor into a landscape of fire and steam. The atmosphere contained virtually no oxygen, instead consisting of methane, ammonia, carbon dioxide, and other gases that would be instantly lethal to most modern life forms. The very chemistry of these prehistoric seas was so alien that they might as well have existed on another planet entirely. Yet it was in this hostile environment, specifically around hydrothermal vents on the ocean floor, that life found its first foothold. These underwater geysers, spewing superheated water rich in minerals and chemicals, created unique microenvironments where the right combination of energy, chemistry, and physical conditions came together to enable the most important transition in Earth's history, the leap from non-living chemistry to living biology. The first organisms to emerge from this primordial soup were bacteria unlike anything that exists today, yet remarkably similar in their basic approach to survival. These microscopic pioneers developed a process called chemosynthesis, a method of creating energy from chemical reactions rather than from sunlight. Using the sulfur, methane, and other chemicals pouring from hydrothermal vents, these early bacteria learned to power their metabolism in ways that seemed to violate the basic rules of chemistry and physics. The fossil evidence for these first life forms comes from some of the most ancient rock formations on Earth, including specimens found in Western Australia that have been perfectly preserved for over 3 billion years. These stromatolites, layered structures created by ancient bacterial communities, represent some of the oldest convincing evidence of life on our planet. Each layer tells the story of countless generations of microscopic organisms working together to build structures that would eventually become visible to the naked eye. What makes these ancient bacterial communities particularly remarkable is their development of cooperative behavior that foreshadowed the complex ecosystems we've been exploring throughout our journey. Even at this earliest stage of life's development, individual bacteria were learning to work together, sharing resources, dividing labor, and creating structures that no single organism could build alone. These microbial cities represented the first experiments in the kind of collaborative living that would eventually produce coral reefs, trilobite communities, and the complex food webs of prehistoric seas. The chemical innovations developed by these early bacteria were so successful that they continue to power life in extreme environments today. The same chemosynthetic processes that allowed the first organisms to survive around ancient hydrothermal vents continue to support thriving communities in the deepest parts of modern oceans, where sunlight has never penetrated, and where conditions remain similar to those that existed billions of years ago. Perhaps most remarkably, these primitive bacteria developed the ability to alter their environment in ways that made it more suitable for life. Through their metabolic processes, they began to change ocean chemistry, removing toxic compounds and gradually creating conditions that would eventually support more complex forms of life. This represents the first example of life engineering its own environment, a process that would eventually lead to the transformation of Earth's entire atmosphere and the creation of conditions suitable for the diverse ecosystems we've explored tonight. The evolution of photosynthesis by certain bacterial lineages represents one of the most important innovations in the history of life on Earth. These cyanobacteria learned to harness the energy of sunlight to power their metabolism, but their success came with a side effect that would prove catastrophic for most existing life forms. They began producing oxygen as a waste product. This oxygen, which we now consider essential for life, was actually poisonous to most of the organisms that had evolved in Earth's oxygen-free environment. The Great Oxidation event that followed represents the first mass extinction in Earth's history, as oxygen-producing bacteria fundamentally changed the chemistry of the oceans and atmosphere. Most of the anaerobic bacteria that had dominated early Earth died out, unable to adapt to the toxic oxygen that was rapidly accumulating in their environment. Yet this apparent catastrophe opened up entirely new possibilities for life, creating conditions that would eventually support the complex, multicellular organisms we've been exploring throughout our prehistoric ocean journey. The bacterial innovations that emerged during this early period established many of the fundamental processes that continue to support life today. The ability to process DNA, to reproduce through cell division, to respond to environmental changes, and to form communities all trace their origins back to these first microscopic pioneers. Every creature we've encountered tonight, from the mighty megalodons to the delicate ammonites, inherited their basic biological toolkit from these ancient bacterial ancestors. The preservation of evidence from this early period of life represents one of the most challenging aspects of paleontology. Unlike the bones, shells, and other hard parts that preserve most of the fossils we've discussed, early bacteria had no skeletal structures that could fossilize in traditional ways. Instead, paleontologists must rely on chemical signatures, mineral formations, and other indirect evidence to reconstruct what these early communities were like. The stromatolites that preserve evidence of early bacterial communities represent one of the few direct windows into this ancient world. These layered structures, built up over thousands of years by successive generations of bacteria, create a kind of biological library where scientists can read the history of early life layer by layer. Each stratum tells a story about ocean chemistry, climate conditions, and biological activity during specific periods in Earth's early history. The study of modern hydrothermal vent communities has provided crucial insights into how early life might have functioned in similar environments billions of years ago. The bacteria and other organisms that thrive around modern deep-sea vents use many of the same chemical processes that likely supported the first life forms, creating living laboratories where scientists can study the kinds of biological innovations that made complex life possible. The geographic distribution of early life evidence reveals that these first organisms were remarkably successful at colonizing diverse marine environments. Stromatolites and other traces of early bacterial activity have been found in rock formations around the world, suggesting that once life emerged, it spread rapidly through Earth's oceans, adapting to different chemical conditions and establishing the foundation for all future biological evolution. The timeline of early life development reveals a pattern of gradual innovation punctuated by major breakthroughs that transformed the entire planet. The development of photosynthesis, the evolution of more complex cell structures, and the eventual emergence of multicellular organisms all represent quantum leaps in biological complexity that built upon the foundation established by those first bacterial communities. The legacy of these early marine bacteria extends far beyond their role as ancestors to all subsequent life. They established many of the basic principles that continue to govern marine ecosystems today. The importance of chemical cycles, the power of cooperative behavior, the ability of life to modify its environment, and the constant potential for evolutionary innovation in response to changing conditions. The connection between these ancient bacterial communities and the complex prehistoric ocean ecosystems we've explored throughout our journey reveals the incredible continuity of life processes across billions of years. The same basic chemical reactions that powered the first bacteria continue to support life in modern oceans, while the collaborative behaviors that created ancient stromatolites evolved into the complex food webs that supported megalodons, trilobites, and all the other remarkable creatures we've encountered. As we drift away from the scalding waters where life first learned to transform chemistry into biology, where microscopic pioneers laid the foundation for all the wonders we've explored together, our journey through prehistoric ocean mysteries continues, with the story of how these simple beginnings eventually gave rise to some of the most spectacular and diverse ecosystems our planet has ever known. Story 12. The Lost Cities of Ancient Coral. From the microscopic beginnings, where life first whispered into existence, our journey through prehistoric ocean mysteries now takes us to witness one of evolution's most spectacular achievements. The construction of underwater cities so magnificent, so teeming with life, that they rivaled any ecosystem our modern oceans have ever produced. 500 million years ago, in the warm, shallow seas that covered much of what is now the American Midwest, ancient coral reefs created marine metropolises of breathtaking diversity and beauty. Preserved today in the limestone formations of Missouri and other states as monuments to life's incredible creativity. These weren't the familiar coral reefs that divers explore in tropical waters today. The ancient reef builders of the Cambrian and Ordovician periods were creatures so different from modern corals that they seemed to belong to an entirely separate experiment in biological architecture. Yet their success in creating complex, thriving ecosystems rivals anything that has existed before or since, demonstrating that evolution has repeatedly discovered the power of cooperative construction to transform barren seafloors into bustling underwater communities. The fossil reefs preserved in Missouri's limestone tell a story of biological collaboration on a scale that staggers the imagination. These ancient reef systems stretched for hundreds of miles across the seafloor, creating underwater mountain ranges built entirely by living organisms, working together over millions of years. The creatures responsible for this monumental construction project included sponges that grew to the size of buildings, corals with bizarre geometries that defy modern classification, and countless other organisms that contributed their own unique architectural elements to the growing reef structure. Unlike modern coral reefs that are built primarily by a few dominant coral species, these ancient underwater cities were marvels of diversity that incorporated dozens of different types of reef-building organisms. Archaeocyatha, strange sponge-like creatures that existed nowhere else in the fossil record, created cup-shaped structures that served as the foundation for entire reef communities. Stromatoporoids, layered organisms of uncertain biological affinity, built massive dome-shaped structures that could reach sizes comparable to modern buildings. The preservation quality of these ancient reefs and American rock formations is so exceptional that paleontologists can reconstruct not just which species lived there, but how they interacted with each other in complex ecological relationships. Fossil evidence reveals intricate networks of predator-prey relationships, symbiotic partnerships, and competitive interactions that created food webs as complex as any found in modern marine ecosystems. The three-dimensional structure of these ancient reefs created countless microhabitats that supported incredible biological diversity. Crevices and caverns within the reef framework provided shelter for small arthropods, early fish, and countless other creatures that found protection from predators in the maze-like interior of these biological cities. Open areas on the reef surface supported filter-feeding organisms that captured plankton from the water column, while the spaces between reef structures became nursery areas where young marine animals could grow to maturity. The construction techniques employed by these ancient reef builders reveal sophisticated biological engineering that rivals anything produced by modern organisms. The creatures that built these reefs had to solve complex problems of structural stability, nutrient flow, and waste management, while creating frameworks that could support thousands of other species. The solutions they developed were so effective that many of the same principles continue to govern reef construction today. The chemical processes that allowed these ancient organisms to build their massive structures involved innovations in biomineralization that had never been attempted before in Earth's history. These creatures learned to extract calcium carbonate from seawater and deposit it in precise patterns that created structures strong enough to withstand ocean currents, storms, and the constant pressure of countless other organisms trying to attach themselves to the reef framework. The ecological relationships that developed within these ancient reef communities included some of the earliest examples of complex predator-prey dynamics in marine environments. Large arthropods stalked smaller creatures through the reef structure, while defensive innovations like spines, shells, and toxic compounds evolved in response to predation pressure. These early arms races between predators and prey established patterns that would continue to drive evolution throughout the following hundreds of millions of years. The diversity of life forms that these ancient reefs supported rivals that of modern tropical rainforests, compressed into underwater areas that might cover only a few square miles. The fossil record preserved in Missouri limestone reveals creatures that filled every conceivable ecological niche, from microscopic filter feeders to large predatory arthropods, from sessile organisms that never moved from their birth location to active swimmers that patrolled the reef looking for prey. The water chemistry that supported these ancient reef ecosystems was dramatically different from modern oceans, with higher temperatures, different atmospheric composition, and mineral concentrations that created unique opportunities for biological innovation. These conditions allowed for rapid growth rates and large body sizes that are rarely seen in modern marine environments, contributing to the spectacular scale and diversity of ancient reef systems. The collapse of these ancient reef ecosystems during various extinction events provides crucial insights into how marine communities respond to environmental change. Some reef systems disappeared gradually as ocean chemistry changed, while others were eliminated rapidly by catastrophic events. The patterns of survival and extinction during these crises reveal which types of organisms and ecological strategies are most resilient to environmental disruption. The fossil preservation process that captured these ancient reefs in stone created some of the most beautiful and scientifically valuable specimens in American museum collections. The limestone formations that contain these fossils often preserve not just the hard parts of reef organisms, but also detailed impressions of soft tissues, feeding structures, and even the traces of behavioral activities like burrowing and boring. The study of ancient reef ecosystems has provided fundamental insights into how biological communities develop complexity over time. The gradual accumulation of species diversity, the development of specialized ecological roles, and the emergence of complex food webs all followed patterns that can be traced through the fossil record of these ancient underwater cities. The geographic distribution of ancient reef fossils across the American Midwest reveals how these ecosystems responded to changes in sea level, climate, and ocean circulation patterns. During periods of high sea level, reef systems expanded across vast areas of what is now dry land, while during times of regression, they became confined to smaller areas where suitable conditions persisted. The innovations in reef construction that developed during this ancient period established many of the principles that continue to govern modern coral reef ecosystems. The ability to create three-dimensional habitat structure, to maintain water quality through biological filtration, and to support high levels of biodiversity in relatively small areas, all trace their origins back to these early experiments in biological city building. The educational value of studying these ancient reefs extends beyond their scientific importance to inspire wonder and appreciation for the incredible creativity of evolutionary processes. The beauty and complexity preserved in Missouri limestone demonstrates that nature has been producing masterpieces of biological architecture for hundreds of millions of years, long before humans ever conceived of building cities or creating art. The conservation implications of understanding ancient reef ecosystems provide crucial context for protecting modern coral reefs that face unprecedented threats from climate change, pollution, and other human impacts. The fossil record shows that reef ecosystems can be remarkably resilient, but also reveals that they can collapse rapidly when environmental conditions change beyond their tolerance limits. The connection between ancient and modern reef ecosystems highlights the continuity of biological processes that have shaped marine life throughout Earth's history. The same fundamental challenges of construction, competition, and cooperation that ancient reef builders faced continue to influence how modern coral reefs develop and maintain themselves in changing ocean conditions. As we swim away from these fossilized underwater cities, where ancient organisms collaborated to build some of the most spectacular ecosystems in Earth's history, our journey through prehistoric ocean mysteries takes us to discover how the success of these early communities set the stage for even more remarkable innovations in marine life, including creatures that would learn to engineer their own environments in ways that transformed entire ocean basins. Story 13. The Architects of the Ancient Seafloor. In the grand narrative of prehistoric ocean mysteries, there exists a chapter that reveals how some of the smallest and seemingly most insignificant creatures became the most powerful forces for environmental change that ancient seas had ever known. 540 million years ago, during the explosive diversification of the Cambrian period, a revolution was taking place on the ocean floor that would transform marine ecosystems forever. This wasn't a revolution led by giant predators or spectacular reef builders, but by humble worms, primitive crustaceans, and other small creatures that discovered the power to reshape their entire world simply by moving through it. The evidence for this remarkable transformation is preserved in exquisite detail in fossil formations throughout North America, from the famous Burgess Shale of Canada to lesser-known but equally important sites in Utah, Nevada, and other western states. These trace fossils, the preserved tracks, burrows, and trails left by ancient creatures, tell a story of environmental engineering on a scale that rivals anything achieved by modern technology. The creatures responsible for this transformation were practicing bioturbation, the biological mixing of sediments millions of years before humans ever dreamed of environmental modification. Before this Cambrian revolution in seafloor engineering, the ocean bottom was a largely static environment where sediments accumulated in undisturbed layers, creating conditions that were hostile to most forms of life. The seafloor was essentially a biological desert, with only the hardiest bacteria and simple organisms able to survive in the oxygen-poor, chemically stagnant conditions that existed just below the sediment surface. This all changed when the first bioturbating animals learned to burrow into the substrate, inadvertently creating one of the most important environmental innovations in Earth's history. The transformation began with creatures like Treptichnus, a worm-like organism whose fossilized burrows reveal sophisticated tunneling behaviors that created complex three-dimensional networks beneath the seafloor. These weren't random excavations, but carefully constructed tunnel systems that maximized the animal's access to food while providing multiple escape routes from predators. The construction of these burrow networks required remarkable engineering instincts that allowed creatures no larger than your finger to reshape vast areas of ocean bottom. The impact of this bioturbation activity on ocean chemistry was revolutionary. By constantly mixing oxygen-rich surface sediments with deeper, oxygen-poor layers, burrowing animals created conditions that supported entirely new types of bacterial communities. These microorganisms, thriving in the newly oxygenated sediments, began processing organic matter more efficiently and releasing nutrients that had previously been locked away in the seafloor. The result was a dramatic increase in the productivity of marine ecosystems across the globe. The fossil record preserved in American rock formations reveals the incredible diversity of bioturbation strategies that evolved during this period. Some creatures, like early trilobites, created simple straight burrows that allowed them to hide from predators while maintaining access to the water column above. Others developed spiral burrows that maximized the surface area of sediment they could process for food. Still others created complex branching systems that resembled underground river networks, distributing nutrients and oxygen throughout large volumes of seafloor sediment. The preservation of these ancient burrows provides an unprecedented window into animal behavior from over 500 million years ago. The fossil traces reveal not just how these creatures moved, but how they fed, where they sought shelter, and even how they interacted with other members of their communities. Some burrow systems show evidence of multiple occupancy, suggesting that ancient animals had developed social behaviors and territorial strategies that involved sharing and defending underground spaces. The ecological impact of seafloor bioturbation extended far beyond the immediate vicinity of individual burrows. The constant mixing of sediments created new habitats for countless other organisms, from bacteria that thrived in the newly oxygenated zones to larger creatures that could exploit the enhanced food availability. This bioturbation activity essentially transformed the seafloor from a two-dimensional surface into a three-dimensional habitat that could support much higher levels of biodiversity. The timing of this bioturbation revolution coincided with the rapid diversification of complex life forms during the Cambrian Explosion, and many scientists believe that the two phenomena were intimately connected. The enhanced productivity and habitat complexity created by burrowing animals may have provided the ecological opportunities that allowed evolution to experiment with the incredible variety of body plans and lifestyles that characterize Cambrian fauna. The engineering challenges faced by these early bioturbidors were remarkably sophisticated. They had to develop methods for preventing burrow collapse in unconsolidated sediments, techniques for maintaining water circulation in underground tunnels, and strategies for disposing of excavated material. The solutions they evolved were so effective that many of the same principles continue to govern burrowing behavior in modern marine animals. The chemical signatures left by ancient bioturbation activity can still be detected in rock formations throughout the American West. These geochemical traces reveal how burrowing animals altered local environments, creating patches of enhanced or depleted nutrients that persisted long enough to be recorded in the geological record. The patterns of these chemical modifications provide insights into the density and activity levels of ancient burrowing communities. The diversity of trace fossils found in Cambrian formations suggests that bioturbation strategies evolved rapidly and in many different directions simultaneously. Some animals specialized in creating temporary burrows for protection during molting or reproduction, while others built permanent tunnel systems that they maintained throughout their lives. Still, others developed nomadic burrowing behaviors that allowed them to constantly explore new areas of the seafloor. The preservation conditions that allow trace fossils to survive for hundreds of millions of years are remarkably specific, requiring rapid burial under conditions that prevent the collapse or erosion of delicate burrow structures. The sites where these fossils are best preserved provide natural laboratories where scientists can study ancient animal behavior with unprecedented detail and accuracy. The study of ancient bioturbation has revealed that these early ecosystem engineers were remarkably responsive to environmental changes. During periods of low oxygen availability, burrowing activity decreased dramatically, while during times of high productivity, the density and complexity of burrow systems increased substantially. This sensitivity to environmental conditions made bioturbating animals important indicators of ancient ocean health. The evolutionary arms race between burrowing animals and their predators drove innovations in both underground construction and surface hunting strategies. Some predators developed specialized techniques for extracting prey from burrows, while prey animals evolved increasingly sophisticated tunnel designs that made capture more difficult. This ongoing competition contributed to the rapid evolution of both predator and prey species during the Cambrian period. The global extent of bioturbation activity during the Cambrian period demonstrates that this environmental engineering revolution occurred simultaneously across the world's oceans. Trace fossils from formations in China, Greenland, and the Americas reveal similar patterns of seafloor modification, suggesting that the basic innovations in burrowing behavior spread rapidly among early animal communities. The modern relevance of understanding ancient bioturbation extends to current efforts in environmental restoration and ecosystem management. The principles discovered by studying how ancient animals enhance seafloor productivity are being applied to projects aimed at restoring damaged marine habitats and improving the health of coastal ecosystems. The connection between ancient bioturbation and modern environmental challenges highlights the continuity of ecological processes that have shaped marine life throughout Earth's history. The same basic relationships between habitat modification, biodiversity enhancement, and ecosystem productivity that ancient burrowing animals discovered continue to operate in modern marine environments. The legacy of these Cambrian ecosystem engineers can be seen in every modern marine environment where burrowing animals continue to play crucial roles in maintaining seafloor health and productivity. The innovations in underground construction, chemical modification, and habitat creation that first appeared over 500 million years ago continue to support marine life throughout the world's oceans. As we rise from the honeycombed seafloors where ancient engineers transformed marine ecosystems through the simple act of moving through sediment, our journey through prehistoric ocean mysteries takes us to witness another remarkable innovation in marine life: the development of active swimming that would forever change the three-dimensional structure of ocean communities. Story 14: When the Ocean Learned to Swim. In the flowing narrative of prehistoric ocean mysteries, there comes a moment so revolutionary, so fundamentally transformative, that it represents one of the most important transitions in the history of life on Earth. 500 million years ago, in the warm, shallow seas that have given us so many incredible fossil discoveries, something extraordinary happened that would forever change the nature of marine ecosystems. For the first time in Earth's history, significant numbers of animals abandoned their attachment to the seafloor and learned to swim freely through the three-dimensional space of the open ocean. This transition from a bottom-dwelling existence to active swimming might seem like a simple evolutionary step, but it represented a revolutionary breakthrough that required the development of entirely new biological systems. The creatures that first mastered this transition had to evolve sophisticated muscle arrangements, sensory systems capable of navigating in 3 dimensions, and energy management strategies that could sustain continuous movement through a medium that offered both support and resistance. The fossil evidence for this remarkable transition comes from some of the most spectacular preservation sites ever discovered, including Australia's Flinders Ranges and similar formations found throughout North America. These deposits contain some of the earliest evidence of active swimmers, creatures that developed the ability to propel themselves through water using coordinated muscle contractions rather than relying on currents, cilia, or other passive movement strategies. The earliest experimental swimmers were creatures that seem almost alien by modern standards, soft-bodied organisms that combined features we now associate with jellyfish, worms, and other simple animals in ways that evolution has never repeated. These pioneer swimmers, preserved as delicate impressions in ancient sediments, reveal the tentative first steps toward mastering one of the most challenging forms of locomotion that life has ever attempted. The development of active swimming required innovations in multiple biological systems simultaneously. Animals had to evolve muscles capable of generating coordinated waves of contraction that could push against water effectively. They needed sensory systems that could detect their orientation and position in 3-dimensional space. Most importantly, they had to develop nervous systems sophisticated enough to coordinate complex movements while processing information about their environment and potential threats or opportunities. The early swimmers preserved in the fossil record reveal a fascinating variety of experimental approaches to aquatic locomotion. Some creatures developed undulating movements that created waves along their entire body, similar to what we see in modern eels or sea snakes. Others evolved rhythmic contractions that propelled them through the water using a form of jet propulsion. Still, others developed appendages that could beat in coordinated patterns, prefiguring the swimming strategies that would later be perfected by arthropods and other advanced swimmers. The ecological impact of this transition to active swimming was profound and immediate. For the first time in Earth's history, marine predators could pursue prey through 3-dimensional space, while prey animals could escape into the water column, rather than being confined to the 2-dimensional world of the seafloor. This transformation in predator-prey dynamics drove rapid evolution in both hunting and escape strategies, contributing to the explosive diversification of life forms during this period. The development of swimming also opened up entirely new ecological niches that had previously been unavailable to complex life. The water column itself became a habitat that could be exploited by animals capable of maintaining their position and moving efficiently through this 3-dimensional space. This expansion of available habitat contributed to the rapid increase in biodiversity that characterizes this period of Earth's history. The preservation of evidence for early swimming behavior required extraordinary circumstances that occurred only rarely in the geological record. The delicate soft tissues and movement patterns of these early swimmers were captured in fine sediments that buried them rapidly enough to prevent decay, while preserving details of their anatomy and even traces of their behavior. These exceptional preservation events provide unique windows into how swimming evolved and diversified during its earliest stages. The energetic challenges of active swimming drove innovations in metabolism and energy storage that had far-reaching consequences for the evolution of complex life. Swimming requires sustained muscle activity that demands much higher energy expenditure than the sedentary lifestyles of bottom-dwelling animals. The creatures that mastered swimming had to evolve more efficient digestive systems, better circulation, and enhanced respiratory capabilities to support their increased energy demands. The sensory adaptations required for successful swimming led to some of the most important innovations in nervous system evolution. Animals that could swim effectively needed to process information about water currents, pressure changes, chemical gradients, and the location of obstacles or other organisms in real time. This demand for rapid information processing drove the evolution of more sophisticated nervous systems that would eventually give rise to the complex behaviors we see in modern marine animals. The diversity of swimming strategies that evolved during this early period reveals the incredible creativity of evolutionary processes when faced with new challenges and opportunities. Some early swimmers developed asymmetrical body plans that allowed them to generate thrust through spiral movements. Others evolved symmetrical designs that could move efficiently in straight lines or execute complex maneuvers. Still others developed hybrid strategies that combined swimming with other forms of locomotion. The fossil record shows that the transition to swimming was not a single evolutionary event, but rather a series of independent innovations that occurred in multiple lineages simultaneously. This parallel evolution of swimming ability suggests that the advantages of active locomotion were so significant that evolution repeatedly found ways to achieve this capability, using whatever anatomical starting points were available. The predatory advantages conferred by swimming ability led to an evolutionary arms race that drove rapid innovation in both offensive and defensive strategies. Swimming predators could pursue prey more effectively than their bottom-dwelling predecessors, while prey animals evolved enhanced escape responses, protective structures, and behavioral strategies to avoid capture. This ongoing competition between swimmers contributed to the rapid evolution of increasingly sophisticated marine communities. The study of trace fossils from this period reveals evidence of complex swimming behaviors that suggest these early swimmers were capable of sophisticated navigation and decision-making. Fossilized tracks show evidence of directional movement, course corrections, and even what appears to be purposeful exploration of different areas within their environment. These behavioral traces provide insights into the cognitive capabilities of early swimming animals. The geographic distribution of early swimming fossils reveals that this innovation spread rapidly across the world's oceans once it appeared. Similar types of early swimmers have been found in fossil deposits on multiple continents, suggesting that the basic principles of aquatic locomotion were discovered independently in different marine environments, or spread quickly through migration and colonization. The biomechanical principles that governed early swimming continue to influence the design of modern marine animals and even human swimming technology. The efficiency of different swimming strokes, the importance of body shape in reducing drag, and the coordination of movement patterns all trace their origins back to innovations that first appeared in these early experimental swimmers. The transition to active swimming also had profound effects on marine ecosystem, structure, and function. The ability of animals to move freely through the water column created new patterns of nutrient distribution, energy flow, and population dynamics that were fundamentally different from those that had characterized earlier seafloor-based communities. The evolutionary success of early swimmers set the stage for all subsequent innovations in marine locomotion, from the jet propulsion of squid to the powerful swimming strokes of fish to the sophisticated navigation abilities of marine mammals. Every swimming animal alive today inherited its basic locomotory toolkit from these ancient pioneers, who first learned to master movement through three-dimensional aquatic space. The study of early swimming evolution provides crucial insights into how complex behaviors and capabilities can emerge from relatively simple anatomical modifications. The transition from crawling to swimming required changes in muscle organization, nervous system structure, and sensory capabilities, but these changes built upon existing biological systems rather than requiring completely new innovations. As we glide away from the experimental waters where life first learned to swim freely through three-dimensional space, leaving behind the gentle currents that carried the earliest swimmers on their pioneering journeys, Our prehistoric ocean mysteries take us to witness the dramatic transformation of an entire sea, where geological forces beyond imagination would create and destroy marine paradise in an epic cycle of construction and devastation. Story 15. The Mediterranean's Lost Paradise. In the grand theater of prehistoric ocean mysteries, few stories are as dramatic or as heartbreaking as the tale of paradise found and paradise lost that unfolded in the Mediterranean basin over the past 20 million years. This is a story that combines the wonder of ancient reef ecosystems with the awesome power of geological forces, revealing how the collision of continents can transform thriving marine paradises into memories preserved only in stone. The Mediterranean we know today, with its azure waters and romantic coastlines, is actually the remnant of a much larger and more spectacular ocean system that once hosted coral reefs rivaling any that have ever existed on Earth. During the Miocene epoch, roughly 20 million years ago, the Mediterranean region was a vastly different world from what we see today. Instead of the semi-enclosed sea that we know, this area was part of a much larger ocean system called the Tethys Sea, a vast body of water that stretched from what is now the Atlantic Ocean all the way to the Indian Ocean. This ancient sea was a tropical paradise that supported marine ecosystems of incredible diversity and beauty, with coral reefs that covered thousands of square miles, and supported levels of biodiversity that may have exceeded anything in our modern oceans. The fossil evidence for these lost Mediterranean reefs comes from spectacular exposures throughout Spain, Italy, and other regions around the Mediterranean basin. These limestone formations preserve not just the skeletal remains of ancient corals, but entire reef ecosystems frozen in time, complete with the fish, crustaceans, mollusks, and countless other creatures that made these reefs their home. The preservation quality is so exceptional that scientists can reconstruct not just the species that lived there, but how they interacted with each other in complex ecological relationships. The coral species that built these ancient Mediterranean reefs were unlike anything alive today, representing evolutionary experiments in reef construction that nature has never repeated. Some grew in massive dome-like formations that created underwater mountains, visible from great distances. Others developed intricate branching patterns that created underwater forests, where countless smaller creatures could find shelter and food. Still others evolved into delicate, flower-like forms that seemed too beautiful to have been real, yet their fossilized remains prove that evolution can create artworks that surpass human imagination. The diversity of life that these ancient reefs supported was staggering in its variety and abundance. The fossil record reveals fish species that combined features we now see distributed among multiple modern families, suggesting that evolution was still experimenting with different approaches to marine life during this period. Crustaceans developed shell patterns and defensive structures of incredible complexity, while mollusks evolved into forms that seem to blur the line between biological organisms and works of sculptural art. The ecological relationships that developed within these reef communities included some of the most sophisticated predator-prey dynamics ever documented in the fossil record. Large predatory fish stalked smaller species through coral forests, while defensive innovations like elaborate spines, toxic compounds, and complex shell structures evolved in response to predation pressure. These ancient Mediterranean reefs were living laboratories, where evolution tested countless strategies for survival and reproduction in intensely competitive environments. The destruction of this marine paradise began with one of the most dramatic geological events in Earth's recent history, the gradual collision between the African and European continental plates. As these massive landmasses slowly ground together over millions of years, they began to reshape the geography of the entire Mediterranean region, squeezing and deforming the ocean basins that had supported thriving reef ecosystems for millions of years. The process of destruction was both gradual and catastrophic, unfolding over timescales that dwarf human comprehension, yet proceeding with inexorable force that no living ecosystem could withstand. As the continents continued their collision course, mountain ranges began to rise from the seafloor, while deep ocean basins were squeezed into progressively smaller and shallower areas. The warm, stable conditions that had supported coral growth for millions of years gradually gave way to environmental chaos that made reef survival impossible. The fossil evidence for this destruction tells a story that reads like a geological thriller. In the oldest layers, we find evidence of thriving reef communities with high diversity and abundant life. Moving up through progressively younger rock formations, the signs of stress become increasingly apparent. Coral diversity decreases, fish populations decline, and the overall structure of reef ecosystems begins to break down as environmental conditions deteriorate beyond the tolerance limits of most marine life. The final chapter in the destruction of Mediterranean reefs came with a series of environmental catastrophes that eliminated even the hardiest surviving species. Changes in ocean circulation patterns disrupted the nutrient flows that had sustained reef productivity, while fluctuations in sea level exposed large areas of reef to destructive erosion. Perhaps most devastating of all, the gradually changing chemistry of the Mediterranean, as it became increasingly isolated from other ocean systems, created conditions that were hostile to the calcium carbonate formation that corals require for growth. The Messinian salinity crisis, which occurred about 6 million years ago, represents the final death blow to the ancient Mediterranean reef systems. During this period, the Mediterranean became almost completely cut off from the Atlantic Ocean, causing water levels to drop dramatically and much of the sea to evaporate into vast salt flats. The few areas that remained flooded became hypersaline lakes that could support only the most specialized forms of life, eliminating the last remnants of the diverse marine ecosystems that had flourished for millions of years. When the Mediterranean finally refilled with Atlantic water about 5 million years ago, it became a fundamentally different marine environment from what had existed before. The new Mediterranean was deeper, more isolated, and characterized by different circulation patterns and chemical conditions that favored entirely different types of marine life. The age of spectacular coral reefs in this region had ended forever, leaving behind only fossilized memories of what had once been one of Earth's most beautiful marine environments. The study of these lost Mediterranean reefs provides crucial insights into how marine ecosystems respond to large-scale environmental change. The fossil record shows that even the most diverse and apparently stable ecosystem can be vulnerable to gradual changes in environmental conditions, particularly when those changes occur faster than evolution can develop adaptive responses. The preservation of Mediterranean reef fossils in limestone formations throughout the region has created some of the most spectacular paleontological sites in the world. These deposits contain not just individual specimens, but entire reef communities preserved in their original ecological context, allowing scientists to study ancient marine ecosystems with unprecedented detail and accuracy. The modern relevance of understanding Mediterranean reef destruction extends to current concerns about coral reef conservation in other parts of the world. The Mediterranean reefs were eliminated by natural geological processes, but the patterns of ecosystem breakdown and species loss that they exhibit are remarkably similar to what we observe in modern coral reefs facing human-induced environmental changes. The economic and cultural significance of the lost Mediterranean reefs continues to influence the region today. The limestone formed from ancient coral reefs has been used as building material throughout the Mediterranean for thousands of years, while the fertile soils that developed from weathered reef rock continue to support agriculture throughout the region. In a very real sense, the civilizations that developed around the Mediterranean were built on the foundations of these ancient marine ecosystems. The beauty of Mediterranean reef fossils has inspired artists, architects, and designers for centuries. The intricate patterns preserved in ancient coral skeletons, the elegant spirals of fossilized shells, and the graceful forms of extinct fish have influenced artistic traditions throughout the Mediterranean region and continue to inspire contemporary art and design. The tourism industry throughout the Mediterranean region depends partly on the geological heritage left behind by ancient reefs. Many of the most spectacular landscapes and formations that attract millions of visitors each year were shaped by the growth and subsequent erosion of ancient coral reefs, creating a tourism economy that is still benefiting from ecosystems that disappeared millions of years ago. The research techniques developed for studying Mediterranean reef fossils have contributed to advances in paleontology, marine biology, and climate science that extend far beyond the Mediterranean region. The methods used to reconstruct ancient reef ecosystems, to understand how they functioned, and to determine why they disappeared have applications in studying marine environments throughout the world. The story of Mediterranean reef destruction serves as a powerful reminder that even the most spectacular and long-lasting natural systems can be vulnerable to environmental change. The reefs that thrived for millions of years in the ancient Mediterranean were eliminated not by a single catastrophic event, but by gradual changes in environmental conditions that accumulated over geological time until they overwhelmed the adaptive capacity of marine ecosystems. The legacy of these lost reefs extends beyond their scientific and cultural value to include important lessons about the relationship between geological processes and biological systems. The Mediterranean reef story demonstrates how continental drift, mountain building, and other large-scale geological processes can profoundly influence the evolution and extinction of marine life over millions of years. The continuing discovery of new Mediterranean reef fossil sites keeps adding details to our understanding of these ancient ecosystems and their destruction. Each new locality provides additional pieces to the puzzle of how these spectacular marine communities functioned and why they ultimately disappeared, contributing to our broader understanding of how marine ecosystems develop and respond to environmental change. As we swim away from the fossilized remains of coral gardens that once rivaled paradise itself, leaving behind the limestone monuments to beauty that geological forces both created and destroyed, our journey through prehistoric ocean mysteries takes us to discover creatures that represent the ultimate triumph of evolutionary conservation. Animals so perfectly adapted to their environment that they have remained essentially unchanged, while the world transformed around them completely. Story 16. The Immortal Survivors of Ancient Seas. In the endless chronicle of prehistoric ocean mysteries, there exist creatures so remarkable, so utterly successful in their approach to survival, that they represent one of evolution's most extraordinary achievements: the ability to remain essentially unchanged while the entire world transforms around them. These are the living fossils, ancient mariners that have sailed through catastrophes that eliminated countless other species, witnessed the rise and fall of entire ecosystems, and continue to thrive in modern oceans, using the same basic body plans that made them successful when trilobites ruled the seafloor and ammonites filled ancient seas. Among the most spectacular examples of these evolutionary time travelers are the horseshoe crabs, creatures whose lineage stretches back an almost incomprehensible 450 million years to the Ordovician period. When the first horseshoe crabs began scuttling across ancient seafloors, the continents were arranged in completely different configurations. The climate was dramatically warmer than today, and the most complex life forms on land were simple plants that had barely begun to colonize terrestrial environments. Yet the basic horseshoe crab design was so perfectly suited to marine survival that it has remained virtually unchanged through ice ages, mass extinctions, and environmental catastrophes that eliminated most of their contemporaries. The fossil record preserved in American rock formations, from New York to the Southwest, tells an incredible story of evolutionary persistence that challenges our understanding of how and why species change over time. Complete horseshoe crab fossils found in deposits spanning hundreds of millions of years reveal creatures that are so similar to modern species that they could almost be mistaken for contemporary specimens. The armored carapace, the compound eyes, the specialized feeding appendages, even the long tail spine that gives these creatures their distinctive appearance, all remained essentially unchanged, while around them the marine world was transformed beyond recognition. The key to horseshoe crab success lies in a body plan so fundamentally sound that evolution has found no way to improve upon it. The domed shell that protects their vital organs can withstand crushing pressure, predator attacks, and the grinding action of sand and sediment as these creatures plow through seafloor environments. Their compound eyes, positioned strategically on the top of their carapace, provide 360-degree vision that allows them to detect threats and opportunities from any direction. Most remarkably of all, their blood contains unique immune compounds that make them virtually impervious to bacterial infections that would be lethal to most other animals. The feeding strategy employed by horseshoe crabs represents another aspect of their design that has proven so successful it has never needed modification. These creatures are living vacuum cleaners that cruise along the seafloor, using specialized appendages to sift through sediment and extract worms, mollusks, and other small prey. This feeding method allows them to exploit food sources that are available in virtually any marine environment, making them independent of the specific ecological relationships that link most other marine animals to particular habitats or prey species. The reproductive behavior of horseshoe crabs follows patterns that have been perfected over hundreds of millions of years of evolutionary refinement. During breeding season, These ancient creatures gather in massive aggregations on beaches throughout their range, creating spectacles that may have looked essentially identical when dinosaurs roamed the Earth. The timing of these gatherings, synchronized with tidal cycles and lunar phases, demonstrates a biological clockwork of extraordinary precision that has been operating without interruption since long before humans evolved. Swimming alongside these armored survivors in our modern oceans are the nautiluses, those elegant masters of buoyancy control whose spiral shells have inspired artists and mathematicians for centuries. The nautilus lineage extends back to the Devonian period, approximately 400 million years ago, making them among the oldest continuously existing animal designs on Earth. Their chambered shells, constructed according to mathematical principles that create perfect spirals, represent a solution to the challenges of underwater life that evolution has never been able to improve upon. The nautilus approach to marine survival is fundamentally different from that of horseshoe crabs, yet equally successful in its own way. Rather than relying on heavy armor and bottom-dwelling strategies, nautiluses perfected the art of neutral buoyancy, allowing them to cruise effortlessly through the water column while using minimal energy. Their shell chambers can be precisely adjusted to maintain perfect buoyancy at any depth, giving them access to the entire three-dimensional space of the ocean, without the energy costs associated with active swimming. The predatory capabilities of nautiluses have remained essentially unchanged since their ancestors first evolved tentacles and jet propulsion systems hundreds of millions of years ago. These living submarines use hydraulic tentacles to capture prey and jet propulsion to escape from predators, technologies that human engineers are still trying to match in underwater vehicles. The sophistication of their hunting strategies suggests levels of intelligence that seem remarkable for creatures that have remained neurologically unchanged since the Paleozoic era. The fossil record reveals that both horseshoe crabs and nautiluses have survived multiple mass extinction events that eliminated countless other marine species. During the Great Permian extinction that ended the Paleozoic era, when over 90% of marine species disappeared forever, these living fossils somehow persevered, while more specialized and apparently advanced creatures vanished. Their survival through such catastrophic events suggests that evolutionary conservatism, rather than innovation, may sometimes be the most successful long-term strategy. The study of living fossils provides unique insights into how evolution operates over geological timescales. These creatures demonstrate that when a body plan is sufficiently well adapted to its environment, natural selection may act to preserve rather than change that design. The genetic mechanisms that maintain such extraordinary evolutionary stability are still being studied, but they appear to involve unusually robust developmental programs that resist the mutations and environmental pressures that drive change in most other organisms. The modern relevance of these ancient designs extends far beyond academic interest in evolutionary processes. Horseshoe crab blood contains compounds that are essential for testing the safety of medical devices and pharmaceuticals, making these living fossils crucial to modern healthcare. The unique properties of their immune system, perfected over hundreds of millions of years, continue to protect both horseshoe crabs and, indirectly, human patients who benefit from medical safety testing. The navigation abilities of nautiluses have attracted attention from researchers studying biological sonar and underwater navigation systems. These creatures can navigate complex three-dimensional environments using sensory capabilities that evolution perfected long before any other animal group developed sophisticated directional sensing. Understanding how nautiluses accomplish their remarkable navigational feats could lead to improvements in autonomous underwater vehicles and other marine technologies. The conservation implications of protecting living fossils are particularly profound because these species represent irreplaceable evolutionary heritage that cannot be recreated if lost. The genetic libraries contained within horseshoe crabs and nautiluses include solutions to survival challenges that evolution spent hundreds of millions of years perfecting. Once lost, these evolutionary achievements could never be recovered, making the preservation of living fossils a unique conservation priority. The geographic distribution of living fossils reveals important patterns in how ancient lineages respond to environmental change over geological time. Horseshoe crabs, for example, have contracted from a global distribution to refuge areas along the eastern coast of North America and parts of Asia, suggesting that even the most successful evolutionary designs have limits to their adaptability. Understanding these patterns helps scientists predict how modern environmental changes might affect other marine species. The educational value of living fossils extends beyond their scientific importance to provide tangible connections to Earth's ancient past. These creatures allow people to directly observe body plans and behaviors that were successful when the world was fundamentally different from today, creating opportunities for understanding evolutionary processes that would otherwise remain purely theoretical. The biomechanical principles that have made living fossils successful continue to inspire innovations in engineering and materials science. The structural design of horseshoe crab shells has influenced the development of protective equipment and architectural systems, while the buoyancy control mechanisms of nautiluses have contributed to advances in submarine and underwater habitat design. The longevity of living fossil lineages raises important questions about the relationship between evolutionary change and environmental adaptation. These creatures demonstrate that evolutionary success doesn't necessarily require constant innovation, but can also be achieved through the development of robust, flexible designs that can accommodate environmental variation without fundamental restructuring. The study of living fossils also provides insights into how marine ecosystems have changed over geological time. By comparing the ecological roles that these creatures play in modern oceans with evidence of their behavior in ancient environments, scientists can understand how marine food webs and community structures have evolved in response to changing ocean conditions. As we drift away from these remarkable time travelers, these living links to ancient seas who have witnessed the rise and fall of countless other species while maintaining their own perfect adaptation to marine life, our journey through prehistoric ocean mysteries takes us to discover creatures that conquered extreme environments by developing biological innovations so sophisticated they continue to inspire modern science and medicine. Story 17. The Indestructible Guardians of Hostile Waters. In the vast catalog of prehistoric ocean mysteries, there exists a chapter so remarkable, so fundamentally important to both ancient seas and modern medicine, that it reveals how life's greatest innovations often emerge from its most challenging environments. Hidden in the deepest layers of oceanic sediments, preserved in rocks that formed when Earth was a far more hostile place than it is today, scientists have discovered evidence of microscopic marine organisms that developed one of the most extraordinary survival capabilities ever documented: the ability to not only survive, but thrive in levels of radiation that would be instantly lethal to most other forms of life. These radiation-resistant marine microbes, known scientifically as extremophile archaea, represent some of the most ancient and successful life forms ever to evolve in Earth's oceans. Their lineage stretches back billions of years to an era when our planet was bombarded by cosmic radiation, volcanic emissions, and other forms of energy that would sterilize most modern environments. Yet rather than being destroyed by these extreme conditions, these remarkable organisms evolved sophisticated molecular machinery that could repair radiation damage faster than it accumulated, essentially making them biologically immortal in environments that would kill other life forms within minutes. The fossil evidence for these extraordinary creatures comes from some of the most ancient marine sediments ever studied, including deposits found throughout the American West that preserve traces of microbial activity from billions of years ago. These microscopic fossils don't preserve the organisms themselves, but rather the chemical signatures of their unique metabolic processes and the mineral formations they created while living in some of the most extreme environments Earth has ever known. The radiation resistance capabilities of these ancient marine microbes were first discovered when scientists began studying modern archaea living near deep-sea hydrothermal vents and other extreme environments. These contemporary relatives of ancient organisms can survive radiation doses thousands of times higher than what would be lethal to humans, leading researchers to investigate how such extraordinary resistance might have evolved and what it could mean for understanding life in extreme environments both on Earth and potentially on other planets. The molecular mechanisms that allow these organisms to survive extreme radiation involve some of the most sophisticated DNA repair systems ever discovered in biology. When radiation damages their genetic material, these microbes can rebuild their DNA from fragments, essentially reconstructing their genetic code from pieces too small for most organisms to use. This repair capability is so advanced that these organisms can survive being essentially shredded at the molecular level and still recover completely within hours. The implications of this radiation resistance for modern medicine are staggering and continue to drive cutting-edge research in cancer treatment, radiation therapy, and space medicine. The DNA repair mechanisms that these ancient marine organisms perfected over billions of years are being studied as potential models for protecting human cells during radiation therapy, allowing doctors to use higher doses of radiation to treat cancer while minimizing damage to healthy tissues. The study of radiation-resistant archaea has also revealed insights into how life might survive in space environments or on planets with high levels of cosmic radiation. The same mechanisms that allow these organisms to thrive in Earth's ancient oceans might enable life to exist on Mars, Europa, or other worlds where radiation levels would be prohibitive for most known life forms. This research has important implications for astrobiology and the search for life beyond Earth. The evolutionary history of radiation resistance in marine microbes reveals a story of biological innovation under the most extreme selection pressures imaginable. During Earth's early history, when the planet lacked a protective ozone layer and was subject to intense cosmic bombardment, only organisms with extraordinary DNA repair capabilities could survive in surface or near-surface environments. This created evolutionary pressure that drove the development of repair mechanisms far more sophisticated than anything that would be needed in modern environments. The geographic distribution of radiation-resistant archaea in ancient marine sediments suggests that these organisms were once much more widespread than they are today. As Earth's environment became less hostile, and other life forms evolved to compete for resources, these extremophiles were gradually relegated to the most challenging environments, where their specialized adaptations continued to provide advantages over more conventional organisms. The metabolic processes used by radiation-resistant archaea represent another area where extreme adaptation has produced innovations with modern applications. These organisms can derive energy from chemical reactions that would be toxic to most other life forms, including processes that break down radioactive materials and convert them into harmless compounds. This capability is being studied for potential applications in environmental cleanup and nuclear waste processing. The molecular biology of radiation-resistant organisms has revealed protein structures and cellular processes that remain functional under conditions that would denature most biological molecules. These stable proteins and robust cellular systems are being investigated for use in biotechnology applications, where conventional biological systems would fail, including industrial processes that involve high temperatures, extreme pH levels, or other harsh conditions. The discovery of radiation-resistant marine microbes has also provided insights into the limits of life on Earth and the conditions under which biological processes can operate. These organisms define the extreme end of the spectrum of life's adaptability, demonstrating that biology can evolve solutions to survival challenges that seem to violate the basic rules of chemistry and physics. The preservation of ancient radiation-resistant organisms in marine sediments has created a record of how these extraordinary capabilities evolved over billions of years. By studying fossils from different geological periods, scientists can trace the development of radiation resistance and understand how these organisms responded to changes in Earth's radiation environment over geological time. The study of extremophile archaea has revolutionized our understanding of the tree of life and the relationships between different groups of organisms. These ancient marine microbes represent one of the oldest branches of life on Earth, and their unique characteristics have forced scientists to reconsider fundamental questions about how life originated and diversified during Earth's earliest history. The biotechnology applications derived from studying radiation-resistant organisms extend beyond medicine to include innovations in materials, science, electronics, and space technology. The molecules and processes that allow these organisms to survive extreme radiation are being adapted for use in developing radiation-resistant electronic components, protective materials for spacecraft, and other technologies that must operate in high radiation environments. The ecological role of radiation-resistant archaea in modern marine environments demonstrates how these ancient organisms continue to play important roles in ocean chemistry and nutrient cycling. Despite being relegated to extreme environments, these microbes continue to influence global biogeochemical processes and may play crucial roles in maintaining ocean health that scientists are only beginning to understand. The research techniques developed for studying radiation-resistant organisms have contributed to advances in molecular biology, genetics, and cell biology that extend far beyond the study of extremophiles. The methods used to analyze DNA repair mechanisms, protein stability, and cellular stress responses in these organisms, have applications throughout biological research, and have led to discoveries that benefit many areas of science and medicine. The conservation implications of protecting environments where radiation-resistant organisms thrive highlight the importance of preserving extreme marine habitats that might seem unimportant to casual observers. These environments serve as natural laboratories where evolution continues to develop solutions to survival challenges, and they may contain organisms with capabilities that could benefit human society in ways we haven't yet imagined. The educational value of studying radiation-resistant marine microbes extends beyond their scientific importance to provide powerful examples of life's incredible adaptability and resilience. These organisms demonstrate that life can find ways to thrive in conditions that seem impossibly hostile, offering hope and inspiration for addressing environmental challenges and expanding the boundaries of human exploration. The ongoing discovery of new radiation-resistant organisms in marine environments around the world suggests that we have only begun to explore the full extent of life's ability to adapt to extreme conditions. Each new species discovered adds to our understanding of the mechanisms that allow life to survive and thrive in environments that challenge our basic assumptions about the limits of biology. As we rise from the radiation-scorched depths where these microscopic guardians continue their billion-year vigil against forces that would destroy most other life, our journey through prehistoric ocean mysteries takes us to discover how ancient marine predators developed feeding strategies so different from modern expectations that they challenge everything we think we know about the relationship between size, power, and hunting success in ocean environments. Story 18. The Gentle Giants That Rewrote Shark History. In the annals of prehistoric ocean mysteries, few discoveries have challenged our preconceptions about marine predators as dramatically as the revelation that some of the largest and most successful sharks in ancient seas were not the razor-toothed killing machines that popular culture has trained us to expect, but gentle giants that fed on some of the smallest creatures in the ocean. 300 million years ago, in the warm, shallow seas that covered much of what is now the American Midwest, massive sharks cruised through ancient waters with their mouths wide open, filtering plankton and small organisms from the water column in a feeding strategy that completely contradicts everything we think we know about shark behavior. The fossil evidence for these remarkable filter-feeding sharks comes from Carboniferous deposits found throughout Illinois, Pennsylvania, and other states that were once covered by extensive shallow seas. These formations have yielded some of the most unexpected shark fossils ever discovered, including teeth and other skeletal elements that reveal feeding strategies so different from modern predatory sharks that early paleontologists struggled to believe they belonged to the same group of animals. The most spectacular of these ancient filter feeders was Orthocanthus, a shark that could reach lengths of over 30 feet, yet possessed teeth that were completely unsuited for capturing and dismembering large prey. Instead of the triangular knife-like teeth that we associate with predatory sharks, Orthocanthus had developed comb-like dental structures that functioned as biological sieves, allowing these massive creatures to strain enormous quantities of water and extract the microscopic organisms that formed the base of ancient marine food webs. The feeding strategy employed by these prehistoric giants required a complete reorganization of shark anatomy and behavior that represents one of the most dramatic evolutionary transitions ever documented in marine predators. These filter-feeding sharks had to develop enlarged mouth cavities that could process vast volumes of water, specialized gill structures that could extract oxygen while simultaneously filtering food, and entirely different swimming behaviors that maximized their encounter rate with plankton-rich water masses. The ecological role played by filter-feeding sharks in Carboniferous marine ecosystems was fundamentally different from anything we see in modern oceans. These gentle giants served as living vacuum cleaners that helped regulate plankton populations and redistribute nutrients throughout the water column. Their feeding activities would have had profound effects on ocean chemistry and productivity, essentially making them keystone species that influenced the entire structure of ancient marine communities. The coexistence of massive filter-feeding sharks with smaller predatory species reveals the incredible diversity of feeding strategies that evolved during the Carboniferous period. Rather than competing directly with predatory sharks for large prey, filter feeders exploited an entirely different trophic level, demonstrating how evolution can partition marine environments to support multiple large predator species without direct competition. The swimming behavior required for successful filter feeding would have been dramatically different from the burst speed hunting techniques used by predatory sharks. Filter feeding species needed to maintain steady, efficient swimming speeds that maximized their water processing rate while minimizing energy expenditure. This requirement led to the evolution of body shapes and fin configurations that were optimized for endurance rather than acceleration. The seasonal movements of ancient filter-feeding sharks likely followed patterns of plankton abundance that would have made them among the first long-distance migrants in shark evolutionary history. These creatures would have needed to track seasonal blooms of microscopic prey across vast ocean basins, developing navigation abilities and migration strategies that prefigured the remarkable long-distance movements we see in modern filter-feeding giants, like whale sharks and basking sharks. The fossil preservation of filter-feeding shark teeth in American formations provides unique insights into how these specialized feeding structures function. Unlike the self-sharpening teeth of predatory species, filter-feeding teeth show wear patterns that indicate constant use in straining activities. These teeth were replaced frequently, creating dense fossil accumulations that allow scientists to study the feeding mechanics of these ancient giants in remarkable detail. The extinction of large filter-feeding sharks at the end of the Carboniferous period represents one of the most significant ecological transitions in marine predator evolution. As ocean conditions changed and plankton communities were reorganized, these specialized feeders found themselves unable to adapt quickly enough to changing food supplies. Their disappearance opened ecological niches that would eventually be filled by other filter-feeding giants. But it took tens of millions of years for marine ecosystems to again support sharks of comparable size and filtering capability. The rediscovery of filter-feeding strategies in modern shark lineages demonstrates that this approach to marine predation represents a successful and repeatedly evolved solution to the challenges of life in plankton-rich waters. Modern whale sharks, basking sharks, and megamouth sharks all independently evolved filtering capabilities, suggesting that the basic principles pioneered by Carboniferous species remain viable strategies for large marine predators. The study of ancient filter-feeding sharks has provided crucial insights into how major evolutionary transitions occur in marine predators. The shift from predatory to filter-feeding behavior required coordinated changes in multiple organ systems, including modifications to teeth, jaws, gills, digestive systems, and swimming musculature. Understanding how these complex transitions were accomplished provides insights into the mechanisms that drive major evolutionary innovations. The biomechanical challenges of filter feeding at large body sizes have attracted attention from engineers studying fluid dynamics and filtration systems. The solutions that ancient sharks evolved for processing enormous volumes of water while extracting microscopic prey represent sophisticated biological engineering that continues to inspire innovations in industrial filtration and water processing technologies. The paleoecological implications of massive filter-feeding sharks extend beyond their direct effects on plankton populations to include influences on ocean circulation, nutrient distribution, and even climate regulation. The feeding activities of these giants would have affected the vertical distribution of nutrients in ancient oceans, potentially influencing global biogeochemical cycles in ways that scientists are only beginning to understand. The genetic mechanisms that controlled the evolution of filter-feeding adaptations in ancient sharks remain largely mysterious, but ongoing research into the development of filtering structures in modern species is providing insights into how such dramatic anatomical reorganizations might have been accomplished. The developmental pathways that control tooth shape, gill architecture, and feeding behavior in sharks are being studied to understand how evolution can rapidly modify these critical systems. The geographic distribution of filter-feeding shark fossils reveals that these creatures were successful in marine environments around the world during the Carboniferous period. Similar species have been found in formations from North America, Europe, and other continents, suggesting that the filter-feeding lifestyle was a globally successful strategy during this period of Earth's history. The preservation of soft tissue impressions in some exceptional fossil sites has provided rare glimpses of the filtering apparatus that these ancient sharks used to extract prey from seawater. These fossils reveal gill structures and mouth cavity modifications that complement the evidence from teeth and other hard parts, creating a more complete picture of how filter feeding functioned in these extinct giants. The discovery of juvenile filter-feeding shark fossils has revealed that these creatures underwent dramatic changes in feeding strategy as they grew. Young individuals appear to have been predatory, feeding on small fish and crustaceans, while adults transitioned to filter feeding as they reached larger sizes. This ontogenetic shift in feeding strategy represents a unique solution to the challenge of maintaining adequate nutrition throughout a dramatic increase in body size. The impact of filter feeding sharks on carboniferous marine ecosystems extended beyond their direct effects on prey populations, to include influences on the evolution of plankton communities. The constant predation pressure from these massive filter feeders would have driven evolutionary innovations in plankton defense strategies, contributing to the diversification of microscopic marine life during this period. The study of ancient filter-feeding sharks has also contributed to our understanding of how marine predator communities respond to environmental change. The extinction of these species during environmental transitions provides important insights into which types of feeding strategies are most vulnerable to ecosystem disruption and which are most likely to survive environmental catastrophes. As we swim away from the gentle currents where these misunderstood giants once cruised with mouths agape, filtering ancient seas for microscopic treasures, our journey through prehistoric ocean mysteries takes us to discover how the smallest marine creatures accomplished some of the most important environmental engineering projects in Earth's history, transforming entire ocean basins through the collective power of countless individual actions. Story 19. The microscopic engineers who built ocean empires. As our journey through prehistoric ocean mysteries draws toward its conclusion, we encounter one of the most profound and far-reaching stories in the entire history of marine life. The tale of how the smallest creatures in ancient seas accomplished some of the largest engineering projects our planet has ever known. 500 million years ago, when the first complex ecosystems were taking shape in Earth's oceans, tiny marine animals no larger than your fingernail discovered that by working together, they could literally move mountains, reshape continents, and engineer environmental changes that would influence the course of evolution for hundreds of millions of years to come. This is the story of marine bioturbation on a scale that dwarfs any human construction project, a tale of microscopic worms, primitive crustaceans, and other small creatures that became the architects of ocean empires through the simple act of living their lives. The fossil evidence for their incredible achievements is preserved in spectacular detail in formations throughout Utah, China, and Greenland, where ancient seafloors have been lifted above sea level and exposed for scientific study, revealing the intricate networks of burrows, tunnels, and modified sediments that these tiny engineers left behind. The scale of ancient bioturbation activities becomes apparent when you realize that individual burrow systems could extend for miles beneath the seafloor, creating underground transportation networks that would make modern subway systems seem simple by comparison. These weren't random excavations, but carefully planned and executed construction projects that required sophisticated engineering solutions to problems of structural stability, ventilation, waste disposal, and resource distribution. The creatures responsible for these monumental engineering feats were ancestors of modern marine worms, early arthropods related to trilobites, and other small organisms that had evolved the ability to process vast quantities of sediment in search of food and shelter. Each individual animal was tiny and seemingly insignificant, but when millions of them worked simultaneously across thousands of square miles of seafloor, their collective impact transformed entire ocean basins. The bioturbation activities of these ancient marine engineers had effects that extended far beyond the immediate vicinity of their burrows. By constantly mixing oxygen-rich surface sediments with deeper oxygen-poor layers, they created chemical gradients that supported entirely new types of bacterial communities. These microorganisms, thriving in the newly oxygenated sediments, began processing organic matter more efficiently and releasing nutrients that had previously been locked away in the seafloor. The result was a dramatic increase in ocean productivity that cascaded up through entire marine food webs. The enhanced nutrient availability created by bioturbation activities supported larger populations of plankton, which in turn supported more fish, which attracted more predators, creating a positive feedback loop that increased biodiversity throughout ancient marine ecosystems. In essence, these tiny engineers were responsible for creating the conditions that allowed marine life to reach new levels of complexity and abundance. The engineering challenges faced by ancient bioturbators were remarkably sophisticated, and required solutions that wouldn't be out of place in modern construction projects. They had to develop methods for preventing tunnel collapse in unconsolidated sediments, techniques for maintaining water circulation in underground networks, and strategies for disposing of excavated material without clogging their own transportation systems. The fossil preservation of ancient burrow systems provides unprecedented insights into how these creatures solved complex engineering problems through biological innovation. Some species developed specialized tunnel-boring adaptations that allowed them to excavate efficiently through different types of sediment, while others evolved sophisticated ventilation systems that could maintain water circulation throughout extensive underground networks. Still others developed modular construction techniques that allowed them to expand and modify their burrow systems as conditions changed. The chemical signatures left by ancient bioturbation activities can still be detected in rock formations throughout the American West, revealing how these tiny engineers altered local environments on scales that persisted for millions of years. The patterns of enhanced or depleted nutrients created by their activities show up as distinct layers in sedimentary rocks, providing a permanent record of their environmental impact that geologists can read like pages in a book. The diversity of bioturbation strategies that evolved during this period reveals the incredible creativity of evolutionary processes when faced with opportunities for environmental modification. Some creatures specialized in vertical burrowing that created deep shafts for protection and feeding, while others developed horizontal tunneling networks that allowed them to exploit resources across wide areas. Still others evolved complex three-dimensional burrow architectures that maximized their access to both surface and subsurface resources. The ecological relationships that developed around bioturbation activities created some of the first examples of ecosystem engineering in marine environments. The burrows created by some species provided shelter and feeding opportunities for other organisms, leading to the development of complex symbiotic relationships and multi-species communities that were organized around the infrastructure created by the original engineers. The timing of the Great Bioturbation Revolution coincided with the Cambrian Explosion of complex life, and many scientists believe that the two phenomena were intimately connected. The enhanced productivity and habitat complexity created by bioturbating animals may have provided the ecological opportunities that allowed evolution to experiment with the incredible variety of body plans and lifestyles that characterize Cambrian fauna. The global extent of bioturbation activities during this period demonstrates that this environmental engineering revolution occurred simultaneously across the world's oceans. Similar burrow systems and sediment modification patterns have been found in formations on multiple continents, suggesting that the basic innovations in bioturbation behavior spread rapidly among early animal communities or evolved independently in response to similar environmental opportunities. The modern relevance of understanding ancient bioturbation extends to current efforts in environmental restoration and ecosystem management. The principles discovered by studying how ancient animals enhanced seafloor productivity are being applied to projects aimed at restoring damaged marine habitats, improving water quality in coastal areas, and developing sustainable aquaculture systems that work with natural biological processes. The biomechanical principles that governed ancient bioturbation continue to influence the design of modern engineering projects. The solutions that ancient animals evolved for preventing tunnel collapse, maintaining structural integrity in soft sediments, and managing water flow through underground networks have inspired innovations in foundation engineering, underground construction, and environmental remediation technologies. The study of trace fossils from ancient bioturbation activities has revealed evidence of complex social behaviors that suggest these early engineers were capable of sophisticated coordination and communication. Some burrow systems show evidence of shared construction projects, where multiple individuals contributed to building structures that were too large for any single animal to complete alone. The evolutionary arms race between bioturbating animals and their predators drove innovations in both underground construction and surface hunting strategies. Some predators developed specialized techniques for extracting prey from burrows, while prey animals evolved increasingly sophisticated tunnel designs that made capture more difficult. This ongoing competition contributed to the rapid evolution of both predator and prey species during this period. The impact of bioturbation on ocean chemistry extended beyond local effects to influence global biogeochemical cycles. The enhanced mixing of sediments, and the increased efficiency of nutrient processing created by bioturbating animals affected the distribution of elements like carbon, nitrogen, and phosphorus throughout ancient ocean systems, potentially influencing global climate patterns and atmospheric composition. The preservation of soft tissue impressions in some exceptional fossil sites has provided rare glimpses of the actual organisms responsible for ancient bioturbation activities. These fossils reveal anatomical adaptations for digging, sensory structures for navigating underground environments, and specialized appendages for processing sediment and extracting food particles. The study of modern bioturbating animals has provided crucial insights into how ancient species might have functioned in their environments. Contemporary marine worms, crustaceans, and other bioturbators use many of the same basic strategies that appear in the fossil record, creating living laboratories where scientists can study the physiological and behavioral mechanisms that make bioturbation possible. The educational value of studying ancient bioturbation extends beyond its scientific importance to provide powerful examples of how small actions can have enormous consequences over geological time. These tiny marine engineers demonstrate that environmental impact isn't always proportional to body size, and that the most significant changes in Earth's history have often been accomplished through the collective actions of countless small organisms. The conservation implications of understanding bioturbation processes highlight the importance of protecting marine habitats where these activities continue to play crucial roles in ecosystem function. Modern bioturbating animals continue to enhance seafloor productivity, improve water quality, and maintain the health of marine communities using the same basic techniques that their ancient ancestors pioneered hundreds of millions of years ago. The connection between ancient and modern bioturbation activities reveals the continuity of ecological processes that have shaped marine life throughout Earth's history. The same fundamental relationships between habitat modification, biodiversity enhancement, and ecosystem productivity that ancient bioturbating animals discovered continue to operate in marine environments around the world. The ongoing discovery of new trace fossil sites continues to reveal additional details about ancient bioturbation activities and their effects on marine ecosystems. Each new locality provides insights into how these processes varied in different environments and how they responded to changes in ocean conditions over geological time. The interdisciplinary nature of bioturbation research has brought together paleontologists, marine biologists, geochemists, and engineers in collaborative efforts to understand how biological activities affect environmental systems. This cooperation has led to advances in multiple fields and has contributed to the development of new approaches to environmental management and restoration. The legacy of ancient bioturbating animals extends far beyond their immediate environmental effects to include their role in establishing the foundation for all subsequent marine ecosystem development. The enhanced productivity and habitat complexity that they created set the stage for the evolution of more complex marine communities and established patterns of ecosystem function that continue to operate in modern oceans. The story of these microscopic engineers serves as a powerful reminder that some of the most important achievements in Earth's history have been accomplished not by large, charismatic megafauna, but by small, humble creatures working together to transform their world. Their example demonstrates that environmental change doesn't always require dramatic individual actions, but can also result from the accumulated effects of countless small contributions working toward a common goal. As we rise from the honeycombed seafloors where ancient engineers transformed marine ecosystems through countless small acts of construction, leaving behind underground empires that continue to influence ocean chemistry today, our final journey through prehistoric ocean mysteries takes us to discover how ancient oceans recorded climate secrets that continue to guide our understanding of how marine environments respond to global environmental change. Story 20. The Ocean's Memory of Ancient Climates. As our extraordinary journey through prehistoric ocean mysteries reaches its peaceful conclusion, we arrive at perhaps the most profound and forward-looking story of all. The tale of how ancient seas have preserved within their depths a detailed record of Earth's climate history that continues to guide our understanding of how marine environments respond to global change. Hidden in the microscopic remains of creatures that lived millions of years ago, encoded in the chemical signatures of ancient seawater, and preserved in the layered sediments that carpet ocean floors around the world, lies a library of climate information so vast and detailed that it makes human weather records seem like brief footnotes in an epic novel. This final chapter in our sleep stories takes us into the realm where prehistoric ocean facts merge with cutting-edge climate science, where the same archaea that we encountered as radiation-resistant pioneers have provided modern researchers with the tools to reconstruct ocean temperatures from millions of years ago with remarkable precision. The story begins with the discovery that certain marine microorganisms, particularly the hardy archaea that have survived in Earth's oceans for billions of years, produce unique molecular compounds that change their structure in response to water temperature. These temperature-sensitive molecules, called lipids, are produced by archaea as part of their cell membranes, and the exact composition of these lipids varies in predictable ways depending on the temperature of the water where the organisms live. When these microscopic creatures die, their lipid compounds settle to the seafloor along with other organic debris, becoming incorporated into sediment layers that preserve a chemical record of ancient ocean conditions. The breakthrough that allowed scientists to read this ancient climate archive came from researchers working at institutions like the University of Washington, who developed techniques for extracting and analyzing these fossilized lipid compounds from sediment cores collected from ocean basins around the world. By drilling into the seafloor and pulling up continuous columns of sediment that represent millions of years of accumulation, scientists created access to climate records that extend far deeper into the past than any other source of environmental data. The precision of these ancient temperature reconstructions is truly remarkable, allowing researchers to detect climate changes as small as a single degree across time periods spanning millions of years. The sediment cores extracted from Pacific and Atlantic Ocean floors contain layer upon layer of these chemical thermometers, creating climate records that reveal not just general trends, but detailed information about seasonal variations, short-term climate fluctuations, and the ocean's response to major environmental events. The climate story that emerges from these ancient ocean archives reveals a planet that has experienced dramatic temperature swings throughout its history, with ocean conditions that range from ice ages when polar seas were frozen year-round, to greenhouse periods when even the deepest waters were warm enough to support tropical marine life. These natural climate variations provide crucial context for understanding how modern oceans might respond to current environmental changes. The research conducted at American institutions has been particularly important in developing the techniques and theoretical frameworks needed to interpret ancient climate signals. Scientists working in laboratories from California to Massachusetts have refined methods for extracting climate information from increasingly small samples, allowing them to reconstruct ocean conditions with both greater accuracy and higher temporal resolution than ever before possible. The global network of sediment sampling sites has revealed that ancient ocean climate changes were not uniform across the planet, but showed complex patterns of regional variation that reflected differences in ocean circulation, atmospheric conditions, and geographic factors. These spatial patterns of climate change provide insights into how global climate systems operate and how they might respond to future environmental pressures. The timescales covered by oceanic climate records span from thousands to millions of years, allowing scientists to study climate variations that occur over periods far longer than human civilization has existed. This long-term perspective reveals climate patterns and relationships that would be impossible to detect using shorter-term data sources, providing crucial information about how Earth's climate system operates over geological time. The correlation between ancient ocean temperatures and other environmental factors has revealed complex relationships between climate, ocean chemistry, volcanic activity, and biological evolution. During periods of intense volcanic activity, for example, ocean temperatures show responses that lasted for thousands of years, while changes in ocean circulation patterns created climate effects that persisted for millions of years. The preservation of climate signals in ocean sediments is so detailed that scientists can often identify specific events that occurred millions of years ago, including asteroid impacts, major volcanic eruptions, and periods of rapid environmental change. These ancient climate events serve as natural experiments that help researchers understand how marine ecosystems respond to sudden environmental disruptions. The study of ancient ocean chemistry has revealed that seawater composition has changed dramatically over geological time, with implications for how marine life evolved and adapted to changing conditions. These chemical changes, preserved in the same sediment cores that contain temperature records, provide complementary information about ancient environmental conditions that help scientists create comprehensive pictures of past ocean states. The development of increasingly sophisticated analytical techniques has allowed researchers to extract climate information from smaller and older samples, pushing the boundaries of what can be learned about ancient ocean conditions. Mass spectrometry, isotope analysis, and other advanced methods are revealing details about ancient climates that were unimaginable just a few decades ago. The relevance of ancient ocean climate records to understanding modern environmental change cannot be overstated. These records provide the only long-term data available for testing climate models, understanding natural climate variability, and predicting how ocean systems might respond to future environmental pressures. The patterns revealed by ancient climate data serve as crucial benchmarks for evaluating current environmental changes. The interdisciplinary nature of ancient climate research has brought together oceanographers, paleontologists, geochemists, and climate modelers in collaborative efforts to understand how Earth's climate system has operated throughout history. This cooperation has led to advances in multiple fields and has contributed to the development of more sophisticated approaches to climate science. The educational value of ancient climate research extends beyond its scientific importance to provide powerful examples of how patient, careful research can reveal secrets that seemed impossible to discover. The ability to determine ocean temperatures from millions of years ago using microscopic fossil remains demonstrates the incredible power of scientific methods to unlock information from the past. The ongoing discovery of new climate archives in ocean sediments continues to expand our understanding of ancient environmental conditions. Each new sediment core provides additional pieces to the puzzle of Earth's climate history, while advances in analytical techniques allow scientists to extract more information from existing samples. The conservation implications of understanding ancient climate changes highlight the importance of protecting marine environments where climate records continue to accumulate. The sediments currently being deposited on ocean floors will provide future scientists with records of current environmental conditions, making the preservation of marine ecosystems crucial for maintaining Earth's climate archive. The technological innovations developed for studying ancient ocean climates have applications beyond paleoclimatology, contributing to advances in analytical chemistry, materials science, and environmental monitoring. The techniques used to extract and analyze ancient climate signals are being adapted for studying modern environmental conditions and developing new approaches to environmental management. The global scope of ancient climate research has created international collaborations that span continents and institutions, bringing together scientists from around the world to study climate changes that affected the entire planet. These collaborative efforts have contributed to a shared understanding of how Earth's climate system operates and how it might respond to future challenges. The story of ancient ocean temperatures serves as a fitting conclusion to our journey through prehistoric ocean mysteries because it demonstrates how the seas continue to teach us about our planet's past, present, and future. The chemical memories preserved in marine sediments connect the ancient worlds we've explored tonight to the modern oceans that continue to influence global climate and environmental conditions. As we surface from our final dive into prehistoric waters, carrying with us the knowledge that ancient seas continue to speak across millions of years through chemical whispers preserved in ocean sediments, we complete our journey through deep time with the understanding that every prehistoric ocean fact we've discovered tonight represents part of an ongoing story that connects ancient mysteries to modern realities, reminding us that the ocean's memory is long and its lessons are eternal. And so our extraordinary journey through the prehistoric oceans that once covered America and shaped life on Earth draws to a peaceful close, but the wonders we've discovered together will continue to ripple through your dreams like gentle waves long after these sleep stories have ended. We've traveled through time itself, from the alien seas where Anomalocaris hunted beneath Cambrian skies, to the depths where spaghetti monsters drift through eternal darkness, to the lost shores where our own ancestors first learned to call the ocean home. Tonight we've explored prehistoric ocean facts that transform familiar American landscapes into windows to alien worlds. We've seen how the ground beneath Los Angeles once teemed with 60-foot megalodons, how the Badlands of Wyoming preserve the remains of 40-foot sea monsters, and how the limestone formations across America tell stories of ancient reefs that rivaled anything in our modern oceans. These aren't just academic curiosities or distant science facts. These are stories that connect directly to the land you know, revealing the incredible deep-sea mysteries that have shaped the very ground you walk on every day. From the mathematical perfection of ammonite shells to the regenerative miracles of ancient sea stars that continue to inspire modern medicine, from the lost oceans of Mars to the armored trilobites that ruled Earth's seas for 300 million years, we've discovered that prehistoric ocean facts are far more than historical curiosities. They're ongoing sources of wonder, scientific breakthrough, and technological innovation that continue to benefit humanity today. Each story we've shared represents just a tiny fraction of the prehistoric ocean mysteries that remain hidden in American rock formations, waiting for the next generation of explorers